Chapter 657. Knock knock. Knocking sounds suddenly came from the door, breaking the silence in the room. Eldest young master, the third princess is here, Sun Qi said respectfully. Jiang Yuqing's frown deepened. Shengguanwan? Why did she come to the residence all of a sudden? He stood up and swept his cold gaze over Xiaomu. You wait here first. Xiaomu bowed his body and lowered his head, seemingly rather nervous. Jiang Yuqing opened the door and looked at Sun Qi. Did the third princess come alone? Where is she now? Sun Qi hurriedly said, Eldest young master, the third princess came in a carriage with Chani. She's already sitting in the guest hall. Master and madam aren't in the residence, so now, fourth miss is taking care of her. The servant is outside the courtyard, waiting for you. Jiang Yuji? Didn't I tell her to stay in her residence? Why did she go to the guest hall? Jiang Yuqing instantly recalled what Jiang Yuji had said previously, and uneasiness grew in his heart. He didn't know if Jiang Yuji had improved during this period of time. If she still had the same thoughts as before, then it wouldn't be good. After thinking for a moment, he immediately decided to go personally. Right now, he was really worried about Jiang Yuji. Moreover, the third princess came suddenly. Perhaps there was something important. I'll go now. As Jiang Yuqing spoke, he pointed at Scarface and the others who had come out and stood together. You can go back now. Remember, don't reveal a single word about today's matter. If I find out that there are any rumors about today, you know the consequences. Yes. Scarface and the others responded in unison. They rejoiced in their hearts and left one after another. As for those who hadn't been investigated, they would undoubtedly continue to wait in this courtyard. They couldn't help but look enviously at Scarface and the others who were leaving. Jiang Yuqing glanced at Qi De and said coldly to Sun Qi, this one and the one in the room have to be specially watched. Sun Qi was slightly shocked. Didn't they already choose Qi De? Yes. Seeing Jiang Yuqing's cold and solemn expression, he immediately responded and sent 2 guards in to guard Xiaomu closely. After explaining all this, Jiang Yuqing left. After he left, most of the people in the courtyard secretly heaved a sigh of relief. However, Qi De was even more flustered. Why was Xiaomu also detained? Judging from eldest young master's attitude just now, his attitude towards Xiaomu seemed to be could it really be Xiaomu who did this? No, that's not right. When they were in the southern border, there were many dangers and they had been forced to split up. Even the eldest young master had lost contact with them for an entire day. But he and Shimu had always been together. Regardless of whether it was him or Shimu, both of them could testify for each other's innocence. But why did eldest young master seem so certain that they were the culprits? Even just now, eldest young master had only asked him a few questions, but his expression suddenly changed and he was certain that he was the one who did it. He didn't even have the chance to explain before he was chased out and watched by these people. He didn't even need to think to know what was waiting for him. Could it be that Xiaomu was facing the same situation as him? Qi De looked into the room anxiously. Unfortunately, other than the 2 guards in charge of guarding the room, he couldn't see Xiaomu at all. Behave yourself. The guard next to him kicked the back of his knee, almost causing him to kneel on the ground. Qi De was terrified and didn't dare to look around casually. He could only retract his gaze and feel suffocated. Could it be that this time he was really going to die here? Qi De was worried about himself and Xiaomu, and he felt uneasy. However, Xiaomu, who was in the room, seemed to be much calmer. After Jiang Yuqing left, 2 guards walked in and stood beside him with a murderous aura. They looked like they would immediately kill him if he made any strange movements. However, half of Xiaomu's face under the mask was still very blank, as if he didn't realize how dangerous the situation was. He stood and waited for a while before walking to the side.
Clang.
What are you doing? The 2 guards drew their swords in unison. Xiaomu didn't seem to notice anything. He continued forward and walked to a good pearwood chair. He sat down. The 2 guards were dumbfounded. Was he tired of standing and wanted to sit down? Get up. Who do you think you are? How dare you sit here casually? One of the guards waved his sword as if he would cut off Xiaomu's neck in the next second. However, Xiaomu only raised his head and glanced at the two of them indifferently. His ink-black eyes were as calm as water, without any ripples. However, when he looked at them quietly, it was as if he had materialized and carried an invisible pressure. The guard's sword shook, and he was at a loss for words for a moment. Forget it. What's the point of arguing with a mute? When eldest young master comes back, he'll be in for it. The other guard didn't want to cause any more trouble, so he tried to persuade him. When eldest young master left, he had instructed him to keep a close eye on this person. This was someone that eldest young master wanted. How would they dare to kill this Xiaomu? Even if they injured him, it wouldn't be good. Anyway, eldest young master would be back soon. As long as the Xiaomu didn't cause any trouble, they didn't have to force him too much. Let's see how long you can be arrogant for. The guard who raised his sword also understood the pros and cons in his heart, so he went with the flow. Xiaomu looked at the two of them indifferently and leaned against a chair with half his face, as if he was unmoved. Hence Xiaomu sat while the two of them stood. Xiaomu was idle, while the two of them were vigilant. Xiaomu was clearly the one who was being guarded and in danger, but he was calmer and more carefree than the two guards in charge of guarding him. It was as if it had nothing to do with this matter. Xiaomu leaned against the chair and thought lazily. Shang Guanwan was here, and Jiang Yuqing would only be back after a long time. Of course, he had to sit down and rest. In the guest hall. In any case, I feel that Chu Luyue is very annoying. She's only been in West Hill for a few days, and she's already so arrogant. I wonder how arrogant she'll be in the future. As Jiang Yuji spoke, a hint of resentment appeared on her face. Now that she dares to bully the Jiang family's fourth young mistress, she might even be disrespectful to you in the future. Third princess. Shang Guanwan listened and said with an indifferent expression, I know that she looks a little similar to my eldest sister, but there are people who look alike in this world. Their appearance is given by their parents, so who can they blame? Moreover, from what I see, this Chu Luyue is actually not bad. Yuji, you hate her so much because you feel that she stole something from you, right? After saying so much, Jiang Yuji only had one meaning. She wanted to borrow Shang Guanwan's hand to deal with Chu Luyue. Although she didn't like Chu Luyue very much, she didn't like being used as a tool even more. Jiang Yuji hesitated for a moment. Of course not. Actually, there's something that I haven't told your highness. She lowered her voice. My brother's study has actually always been, a voice suddenly sounded, interrupting Jiang Yuji's words. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 658. The two of them looked up at the same time. It was Jiang Yuqing. He walked over with a faint smile on his face. I was just about to enter the palace to see you and discuss the wedding matters when you came. Shang Guanwan's heart warmed when she heard him mention this, and her expression also improved. As Jiang Yuqing spoke, he sat down beside the two of them and asked in a seemingly casual manner, Why didn't you say anything in advance? You came, but there was no one in the residence to entertain you. How negligent. It's fine. This consort only brought Chani here on a whim. Besides, isn't Yuji accompanying this consort? Shang Guanwan smiled. Oh. Jiang Yuqing glanced at Jiang Yuji. What were the two of you talking about just now? His gaze slowly swept over Jiang Yuji's body, causing her to immediately feel guilty. She lowered her head and muttered, Nothing. She didn't say much. She said that she hasn't left the residence during this period of time and doesn't know what interesting things have happened outside, so she begged this consort to tell her. Shang Guanwan calmly continued the conversation and glared at Jiang Yuqing. No matter what, she's still your younger sister. How can you just lock her up in the residence like this? Look at how aggrieved she has become. Why don't you just let her go this time? Jiang Yuji glanced at her gratefully. Jiang Yuqing glanced at the two of them and laughed. Since one personally pleaded for leniency, I naturally have no reason to refuse. Yuji, from today onwards, your confinement is lifted. Jiang Yuji looked up in surprise. However, you have to remember what I told you before. If you don't learn your lesson, no one will be able to help you. I got it. Thank you, big brother. Thank you, third princess. Jiang Yuji had long been bored to death. She had come out today to ask her brother for this matter. She didn't expect that it would be done before she even asked. How could she not be happy? For a moment, she almost regarded Shangguan Wan as her great benefactor. Jiang Yuqing smiled and handed over a cosmos ring. I know you've been wanting to go out for a long time. Take it, you can buy whatever you want today. But you have to bring Uncle Fu with you. Uncle Fu was an old man in the Jiang residence and was also a peak rank 7 martial artist. With him around, he could protect Jiang Yuji. Jiang Yuqing shrieked in joy and quickly snatched the cosmos ring, as if she was afraid that Jiang Yuqing would regret it. I know. Thank you, brother. Before he could finish his words, he had already run out. Uncle Fu. Uncle Fu. Let's go. When Jiang Yuji disappeared from his sight, Jiang Yuqing breathed a sigh of relief. He turned to look at Shangguan Wan. Why are you here today? He didn't believe that Shangguan Wan was really suddenly interested. Shangguan Wan stared at him for a while before she selectively repeated what Zhuangmingxi had said today. The more she said, the colder Jiang Yuqing's face became. That's about it. But now, Master Zhua only has a trace of suspicion and doesn't have any evidence. After thinking about it, I feel that I still need to discuss this matter with you. As Shangguan Wan spoke, she looked at Jiang Yuqing's face. It seemed that he had nothing to do with this matter. In fact, she didn't want to suspect Jiang Yuqing in her heart, but she had no choice but to test him. But now it seemed that she had thought too much. But if it had nothing to do with him, who could it be? Jiang Yuqing frowned. There are only a few people who go in and out of Qingfeng Palace every day. Could it be that someone really did something to make His Majesty? He stood up restlessly and paced back and forth, repeatedly thinking about who might have the opportunity to do it. In fact, he had long felt that something was wrong, but he didn't know what the problem was. Now, according to Zhuangmingxi's words, perhaps he really should investigate it carefully. What about the other two celestial physicians? What did they say? Shangguan Wan said helplessly. I haven't asked them yet. Master Zhua is on duty today, and the other two didn't enter the palace at all. Jiang Yuqing said in a deep voice. Since Master Zhua can sense this problem, the other two should be able to as well. But they haven't done anything yet, nor have they expressed their opinions. You mean it's possible that the two of them did it? Shangguan Wan froze for a moment and immediately denied it. Impossible. Those two were carefully selected by me. They have been with me for many years, and it's impossible for them to betray. How can there be no betrayal in this world? Jiang Yuqing said with a sullen face. Shangguan Wan's expression changed slightly, as if she was hit by something. The atmosphere between the two froze for a moment before Shangguan Wan said. Then we have to investigate this matter later. Jiang Yuqing nodded. This is a serious matter, so we have to be careful. Shangguan Wan thought of something and didn't reply. Jiang Yuqing calculated the time in his heart. I still have to go back and deal with the remaining half. Wan, Yuqing, many officials in the court have been urging us to set the wedding date recently. What do you think? Shangguan Wan recovered her senses and said something that stunned Jiang Yuqing.
What?
Why did they suddenly start urging us? Didn't we say that it's only going to be in these few months? They're urging us to set a specific date. Even though we already have a marriage agreement, the wedding date hasn't been set yet. They're naturally anxious. Besides, they didn't suddenly urge us. It's been a while. It's just that you didn't care about it. Shangguan Wan's voice was filled with dissatisfaction. Every time they talked about the wedding date, Jiang Yuqing would always reject it and say, wait a little longer. At the start, he said that it was because Shangguan Yu died, so the two of them couldn't get together too quickly. But now, he's been dead for almost 2 years, and it's almost time for the mourning period. Now, I'm the true ruler of the Tianling dynasty. Do I still have to care about a dead person's face whether I get married or not? Besides, I've been engaged to Jiang Yuqing for more than half a year, but they haven't even set a wedding date. Even I feel uncomfortable every time I think about it. Jiang Yuqing immediately went forward, held her hand, and patiently persuaded her. Wanner, it's not that I don't care. I clearly care too much, so I'm very careful. We've just stabilized our foundation. Most importantly, His Majesty hasn't woken up. Do we not get married if father doesn't wake up? Shangguan said angrily. Jiang Yuqing was embarrassed. The rule of the Tianling dynasty has always been that only those who get married can truly ascend to the throne. The day of the wedding is also the day I ascend to the throne. Although I hold great power now, I'm just the third princess after all. As long as I don't get married, I won't be legitimate. Shangguan stared at Jiang Yuqing and said word by word, I don't intend to wait any longer. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from AI. Net. Chapter 659. It was the same for Shangguan back then. The day of her and Jiang Yuqing's wedding was actually her coronation ceremony. However, the person who came later died, so it naturally couldn't continue. Now that it was finally her turn, how could she delay it again and again? She couldn't be at ease as long as she didn't sit on that throne. Jiang Yuqing saw her determined expression, as if she had really made up her mind, and couldn't help but have a headache. But, have you forgotten the most important thing? If you really want to take the throne legitimately, then you have to pick up the Tianling scepter personally. But now your body. Shangguan's expression changed slightly, and she gritted her teeth. Of course she remembered this. Every emperor of the Tianling dynasty had to pick up the Tianling scepter in front of the courtiers when they ascended the throne. That was a symbol of identity and status. It also represented the true supreme power of the Tianling dynasty. However, the Tianling scepter weighed thousands of kilograms, and only a martial artist with the strength of level 8 or above could pick it up. The current Shangguan's yuan meridian was crippled, so she couldn't do it at all. She could use some methods to hide the fact that she was already a cripple. However, the Tianling scepter definitely couldn't be concealed. Have you ever thought about how the courtiers will look at you if you can't pick up the Tianling scepter successfully? They will definitely think that you don't have the ability and qualifications to inherit the throne. The Tianling scepter was almost a godly existence in the entire Tianling dynasty. Countless people looked up to it and were full of admiration. That was everyone's belief. Only those who were recognized by the Tianling scepter could become the true emperor. If Shangguan failed, she probably wouldn't be able to get rid of the shadow for the rest of her life. Shangguan bit her lip. Previously, they had been waiting for her father to wake up before carrying out the series of plans. But now, no one knew how long they would have to wait. However, Shangguan couldn't wait for the throne. She said, Then let's think of a way to recover the yuan meridian first. Anyway, the Wanjing competition has already ended. Jiang Yuqing looked at her in shock, then immediately frowned and said, No, it's still early. If we act now, it will definitely arouse suspicion. So what if I suspect you? Didn't many people suspect Shangguan's death back then? Wasn't he still fine in the end? Shangguan sneered. As long as you have real power, all doubts will disappear. Jiang Yuqing glanced at her coldly. Do you know how much effort I put in to quell those doubts? Shangguan rolled her eyes, got up and walked to Jiang Yuqing. The arrogant and despotic look on her face had been replaced by a sweet and charming smile. She leaned into his embrace, hugged his waist with both hands, and said coquettishly, Of course Wana knows. Yuqing has always treated me the best, hasn't he? She didn't say this consort. In any case, the current situation is like this. It can't be changed no matter what. Perhaps there is only one way for me to recover my yuan meridian. Even if I don't do it now, I will definitely do it in the future. As long as he was careful, there would be no problem. Her hand slowly brushed against his arm, and there was a tinge of sadness on her face. Both of us were injured back then. You had already fully recovered more than a year ago, but Jiang Yuqing closed his eyes and hid the anger in them. He hated it the most when Shangguan mentioned this, always reminding him over and over again that this arm wasn't his. Even though he didn't feel anything strange now, he still felt uncomfortable in his heart. If he didn't agree to Shang Guanwan's request today, she definitely wouldn't let it go. After thinking for a long time, he finally nodded.
Okay.
Shang Guanwan looked up at him happily. You agreed? Really? Jiang Yuqing's lips curled up into a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Of course. I'll personally arrange this matter. You just have to focus on investigating the problem on His Majesty's side. Yes. I knew that you would not care about me, Yuqing. As Shang Guanwan spoke, she hugged him and asked, Oh, right. Since we've already decided on this, why don't we set the wedding date? Jiang Yuqing wanted to reject her, but he swallowed his words when he saw her expression. After pausing for a moment, he said, How about after the 6th of August? Shang Guanwan was a little disappointed. Doesn't that mean there's still half a year? It's too long. Why don't we set it on the 6th of June? Everything should be ready by then. Even though it was a question, her tone was unquestionable. Jiang Yuqing nodded. Then the 6th of June it is. Then, Jiang Yuqing chatted with Shang Guanwan for a while and settled some matters. Only then did Shang Guanwan leave in satisfaction. She had already thought of how to deal with those old fellows the next day. After suddenly resolving 2 of her worries, she was elated and didn't notice the hint of impatience in Jiang Yuqing's eyes. After she left, Jiang Yuqing stood alone in the guest hall for a while, adjusted his expression, and headed toward Wudong Garden. Since these things have already started to be prepared, I have to hurry up on my side. Especially, I can't let Yu Qisong have any evidence against me. I have to settle this problem as soon as possible. The crowd in Wudong Garden kept waiting. The heavy snow didn't stop, and the accumulated snow had already reached their calves. It was bone-chilling. But the courtyard was extremely quiet, and there wasn't even a single complaint. They didn't even dare to show their dissatisfaction. Sun Qi stood on the stairs and swept his gaze across the crowd before looking into the room. Xia Mu was sitting inside, looking rather relaxed and carefree. Sun Qi was fuming with anger. This Xia Mu is really crazy. Eldest young master's attitude when he left clearly said that there's something wrong with this Xia Mu. However, he didn't seem to notice it at all. Not only was he not worried about his situation at all, he even sat down calmly to rest as if this was his own home. In the past, he didn't think that Xia Mu would be so ungrateful. Then, he looked at Qi. After coming out of the room, he stayed there obediently. He heard that the two of them had a good relationship. Why was there such a huge difference? If it weren't for the fact that eldest young master might come back and continue interrogating him and couldn't do anything to Xia Mu, he would have chased him out of the room and ordered him to kneel outside for a day and night. Eldest young master. Suddenly, a servant's voice came from outside. Everyone in the courtyard, including Sun Qi, looked over at the same time. Jiang Yuqing walked in. There was a thick layer of snow on the ground. He walked on it, but he didn't leave any footprints. Everyone's hearts trembled as they bowed. Greetings, eldest young master. Jiang Yuqing ignored them and walked straight into the room with a cold expression. As soon as he entered, he saw 2 guards standing there vigilantly. Beside them, a person was sitting on a chair. It was Xia Mu. Jiang Yuqing's anger instantly rose. How dare you? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 660. The 2 guards immediately knelt down. On the other hand, Xia Mu slowly stood up and bowed, as if he didn't realize how much he had gone overboard. Jiang Yuqing was so angry that the veins on his forehead were throbbing. He had never seen such an impudent and bold person in the Jiang residence. Xia Mu.
How dare you?
Xia Mu raised his head and glanced at him. His eyes seemed to be shrouded in a layer of mist, and he couldn't see clearly. He seemed to be very confused. Didn't he ask him to wait here? He was waiting here and didn't do anything. Jiang Yuqing closed his eyes tightly. If it weren't for the fact that there were so many people around, he would have already kicked them. Both of you get lost. He shouted angrily at the 2 guards. Useless. The 2 of them hurriedly responded and left the room. However, just as they reached the door, they heard Jiang Yuqing continue. Kneel outside. Slap yourself 50 times. The two guards looked at each other and complained in their hearts. This was clearly Xiaomu's fault. Why did it become them being punished in the end? But at this moment, Jiang Yucheng was in a fit of anger. Who dared to refute him? The two of them could only comply obediently. They walked into the courtyard, knelt in the snow with a plop, and began to slap themselves. When everyone saw this, they looked at each other in confusion. What happened? Weren't the two of them guarding Xiaomu in the room earlier? How did they provoke eldest young master? I didn't hear any movements in the room just now. The loud and clear sound of slapping echoed in the quiet courtyard, and it was even clearer. Many people looked at Sun Qi. Sun Qi knew the reason, but looking at the two guards, he was also displeased. They were clearly carrying sabers and were in charge of guarding, but they were suppressed by Xiaomu. I really don't know what they're doing. They deserve to be punished by eldest young master. He glanced into the room. At this moment, the door was tightly shut, and he couldn't see anything. However, eldest young master was already back. Wouldn't it be easy to deal with Xiaomu? In the room, Jiang Yucheng stared at Xiaomu, and his voice was as cold as ice. You're quite carefree, huh? What do you take this place for? Is this your home? Xiaomu lowered his head, and his shoulders drooped. He looked a little listless. Hearing this question, he immediately shook his head.
No.
This place is too disgusting. Forget about being the head of the house. Then you still dare to do this. Jiang Yucheng raised his hand and was about to hit Xiaomu, but when he saw the half-mask on his face, he stopped. Now was not the time to get angry. More importantly, they had to solve the problem. Jiang Yucheng took a deep breath, suppressed the anger in his heart, and narrowed his eyes dangerously. I'll hold you responsible for this later. You haven't answered what I asked you just now.
Speak.
What the hell is going on? His last words were like a clap of thunder, full of pressure. Xiaomu's body shuddered, as if he was shocked by this voice. Then, he raised his hands and gestured. Only then did Jiang Yucheng remember that he couldn't speak. He walked to the side of the table and threw a stack of paper, a brush, and an inkstone at Xiaomu. The inkstone even hit Xiaomu's shoulder. His body trembled slightly. Right, Jiang Yucheng said angrily. Xiaomu hesitated for a moment before slowly squatting down and picking up the things that had scattered all over the ground. Perhaps he was scared out of his wits, or perhaps he was like this to begin with. His movements were slow and stiff, making one feel aggrieved. Jiang Yucheng was extremely impatient. Finally, he couldn't help but take a few steps forward and reach for Xiaomu's collar. What the hell, Qi? Before his hand touched Xiaomu, he suddenly felt a gust of cold wind blowing towards him. Jiang Yucheng knew that something was wrong and immediately wanted to retreat. However, Xiaomu, who was originally squatting on the ground, quickly got up at lightning speed. He raised all the things that he had packed up in his arms. The paper fluttered down, instantly blocking Jiang Yucheng's line of sight. At the same time, Xiaomu also pounced on Jiang Yucheng. Jiang Yucheng's chin was knocked hard. His teeth collided, and he directly bit his tongue until it bled. A wave of intense pain assaulted him. His lips and teeth were instantly filled with the smell of blood. However, Jiang Yucheng couldn't care about that. He directly reached for Xiaomu with one hand. This Xiaomu, there was indeed something wrong with him. Unexpectedly, although Xiaomu's cultivation level wasn't high, his movements were extremely agile. With a tilt of his body, he dodged Jiang Yucheng's attack. At the same time, Xiaomu directly reached out with one hand and ruthlessly stabbed that pen into Jiang Yucheng's lower abdomen. That pen seemed to contain a great force as it directly sank into his abdomen. Jiang Yucheng's face instantly turned pale. Then, his face contorted from pain and anger. You're courting death. He clamped down on Xiaomu tightly, gathered force in his palm, and viciously slammed it towards Xiaomu. Xiaomu suddenly lowered his body, grabbed his arm, and fiercely twisted it. Jiang Yucheng felt the pain and subconsciously let go. Xiaomu took the opportunity to escape.
Bang.
The door was knocked open. Eldest young master, what happened?
Poof.
Xiaomu actually directly smashed the window and jumped out. That thin and small figure instantly disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. Jiang Yuqing gritted his teeth and pulled out that pen. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere. His feet swayed, and he actually almost fell down. If it were under normal circumstances, this wouldn't be a problem for him at all. However, his body had just been seriously injured during this period of time, and he was nervous. In addition, that Xia Mu had stabbed him in the right spot, causing him so much pain that he almost fainted. Sun Qi and the others, who had barged in, were all stunned. What's going on? Xia Mu injured eldest young master and escaped? Quick, chase after him. Jiang Yuqing shouted angrily. Digression. At around 3:00 p.m., mobile users, please browse and read. A more high-quality reading experience comes from AI Network. Chapter 661. Sun Qi looked hesitantly at Jiang Yuqing, who was stained with blood. But eldest young master, you. Go. Jiang Yuqing was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Sun Qi's heart skipped a beat. Yes, he said to the two guards behind him. Go after Xia Mu immediately. And you, immediately bring people to lock down the Jiang mansion. No one is allowed to enter or leave. The two guards hurriedly complied and left separately. Sun Qi also jumped out of the window and looked in the direction where Xia Mu left. At the same time, he took out a bamboo tube and pulled a hard
Bang.
A firework instantly exploded in the sky. This was something that would only be used in an emergency. Sun Qi usually followed Jiang Yuqing and almost never used it. He didn't expect that it would come in handy in the Jiang mansion today. Soon, the guards of the Jiang mansion rushed over from all directions. In a short while, hundreds of people had gathered, and none of them were weak. Sun Qi quickly said, Someone sneaked up on eldest young master just now, and has fled outside. Everyone follow me immediately to find him. Everyone was shocked. Someone actually dared to sneak up on eldest young master in the Jiang mansion? How much guts did he have? Did he not want to live anymore? That person is thin and small. He's wearing blackish-gray clothes and half an iron mask on his face. His face is severely burned. Once anyone finds this person, you must capture him immediately. Yes. Under Sun Qi's lead, everyone followed out. On the other side, the people waiting in Wudong Garden were also shocked. What was wrong with Xia Mu that he actually wanted to go against eldest young master? Qi De was also stunned. Impossible. It's impossible. With Xia Mu's courage and strength, it was impossible for him to do such a thing. At this moment, the guards who left had already led a group of people to lock down Wudong Garden. No one was allowed to enter or leave as they pleased. An old man hurried over. When they saw him, the guards took the initiative to make way. Elder Feng. This person was a celestial physician who was specially worshipped in the mansion. He was also eldest young master's trusted aide, Feng Shangyuan. Feng Shangyuan hurriedly entered the room and saw the pale and furious Jiang Yuqing at first glance. His expression changed slightly, and he quickly went forward. Eldest young master. How are you? Jiang Yuqing let go of his hand. Feng Shangyuan saw a bloody hole in his lower abdomen, and beside Jiang Yuqing's feet was a bloody writing brush. This must have been caused by that person just now. Feng Shangyuan was shocked. He quickly took out a medicinal pill and fed it to Jiang Yuqing. At the same time, he carefully treated his wound. Eldest young master's body has just recovered. I'm afraid that he will have to recuperate for a period of time again. How could that person be so accurate? He actually hit that exact spot. If he had used a little more strength, I'm afraid that his dantian would have been injured. Jiang Yuqing's expression was unsightly. The other party's strength was much lower than his, yet he was still ambushed. On one hand, he wasn't on guard at that time. On the other hand, that person's speed was too fast. After Feng Shangyuan quickly helped him deal with it, Jiang Yuqing took a step forward and was about to chase after him. Young master, you shouldn't move too much right now, so you should rest first. Sun Qi and the others will help you find them. Feng Shangyuan said earnestly. Your body is very weak now. It can't withstand too much torture. Otherwise, Jiang Yuqing's eyes seemed to be burning with two balls of fire. This young master is well aware of his own body. I must catch that Xia Mu today. Today's wound was simply a great humiliation. He took a step forward, then turned around and said sternly to the guards outside the door, "Take that Qi De away. Watch carefully." Yes, Qi De seemed to have a good relationship with that Xia Mu. Who knew if this matter was also related to Qi De? Qi De couldn't defend himself. He was quickly sealed and taken away. Jiang Yuqing took a deep breath. At this time, the medicine had already taken effect. The pain was slightly reduced, and the bandaged wound was no longer bleeding. He didn't hesitate to walk out. He wanted to tear that Xia Mu into pieces with his own hands. Eldest young master, Feng Shangyuan still wanted to persuade him. Suddenly, a burning pain came from the wound, causing Jiang Yuqing's vision to turn black. He almost couldn't stand. He immediately stopped, gritted his teeth, and looked down at his lower abdomen. That burning sensation quickly disappeared, as if it had never appeared. Eldest young master, what's wrong? Feng Shangyuan saw the abnormality and immediately asked. Jiang Yuqing waited for a moment and realized that the feeling didn't appear again. He felt slightly relieved. It was probably the medicine's effect, nothing. He quickly said and rushed out without caring about being stopped. Although Feng Shangyuan was worried, he knew that Jiang Yuqing wouldn't change his mind once he was determined to do something. Now that he was injured by a nameless pawn, he would probably have to crush his bones and scatter his ashes to dispel the hatred in his heart. Looking at Jiang Yuqing's back view, Feng Shangyuan frowned. Eldest young master's body couldn't take it anymore. On the other side, Sun Qi quickly brought people to find the guard who was sent to chase after Xia Mu. Where's Xia Mu? Sun Qi looked around and didn't see anyone, so he hurriedly asked. That guard's body trembled as he stammered. I lost him. Lost him? Sun Qi couldn't take it anymore and slapped him.
Slap.
You can't even do such a small thing well. What's the use of having you? How dare you lose him? Do you not want your life anymore? The guard hurriedly admitted his mistake, but he was helpless in his heart. Lord Sun, that Xia Mu's movements are agile. I only saw him jump over that wall and completely disappeared. Sun Qi looked in the direction he pointed and knew that Xia Mu had already escaped from the Jiang residence. Wudong Garden was very close to the back door, and there were very few guards. It wasn't impossible for that person to escape quickly. Split up and chase after him. Now that the road is covered in snow, I don't believe that he won't leave any traces. Yes. On the other side, Xia Mu quickly escaped from the Jiang residence and walked along a small path. Now that the city was covered in snow, his clothes were too conspicuous. With his speed and concealment, it wouldn't be a problem for him to hide for a while, but those people from the Jiang residence would definitely not let him go. Therefore, he had to think of a complete solution at this moment. The sound of a carriage suddenly came from behind. Xia Mu was stunned and looked back. Why would there be a carriage at this time? And there was no one riding the horse. Swoosh, swoosh. The sound of something tearing through the air could be heard. Several silhouettes were rapidly approaching this place. He definitely can't run too far. Immediately seal off this place. Search carefully. Even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground, you have to find him. Yes, it's Jiang Yuqing. He actually chased after me? Hearing his approaching voice, Xia Mu made up his mind and turned around to jump toward the carriage. However, just as he reached in front of it, the curtain was lifted from the inside. An arm reached out and quickly pulled Xia Mu in.
Dong.
Xia Mu fell into a warm and broad embrace. Xia Mu turned around and jumped up, locking the person's wrist on the wall of the carriage. He pinned the other party down. How dare you? Before he could finish speaking, he suddenly smelled a familiar cold fragrance. The man who was tightly pinned down chuckled softly. Are you in such a hurry? Digression, it's over. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 662. Xiaomu raised her head and saw a familiar face. He was noble and devilish, with a hint of a smile on his face. He was like peach blossoms blooming in the spring of March, the most ambiguous and moving spring in the world. Rong Xiao. He was wearing a white brocade robe and a black cloak. The fine black fox fur wrapped around his jade-like face, making him look like the bright moon in the middle of the night. At this moment, he was sitting on the side, tightly pressed down by the person in his arms. One of his hands was on Xiaomu's waist, while the other hand was forcefully pressed against the wall of the carriage. It looked like he was the one being bullied. The two of them were so close to each other that they could smell each other's breaths. Inside the carriage, there was a small incense burner decorated with gold and colorful decorations. It burned quietly, making the atmosphere inside the carriage warm and ambiguous. Imperceptibly, the originally spacious carriage became much narrower and narrower. Xiaomu's movements suddenly stopped, and a trace of astonishment flashed through her black, jade-like eyes. Rong Xiao raised his hand and removed half of the iron mask on Xiaomu's face. When he saw the ugly and twisted scar, there was no trace of displeasure on his face. Instead, the corners of his lips curled up. It's not done well enough. People will definitely see through it if they see it up close. No wonder you're so flustered. As he spoke, his slender fingers gently touched Shimu's chin, and he easily removed the fake scars. A beautiful face appeared in front of him. If it wasn't Chu Luiyue, who else could it be? Rong Xiao's gaze carefully swept across her face. They hadn't seen each other for a few days, but she missed him so much that she almost went crazy. He held her face in his hands and gently brushed his fingers across her soft lips. His eyes darkened slightly. Then, he raised his head slightly and leaned against the wall of the carriage. His jawline was smooth and perfect. Below it was a prominent Adam's apple and a jade button that was tightly fastened, glowing faintly. He looked at the woman in front of him who hadn't recovered from her daze with a faint smile. "Do you want to continue?" His voice was low and lazy, and the tone at the end rose slightly. It was as if there was a hook, easily moving people's hearts. As he spoke, his Adam's apple bobbed up and down, giving off a fatal attraction. Chu Luiyue stared at the jade button on his collar and suddenly felt that it was a bit of an eyesore. Wouldn't it be too tight if he wore it like this? Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly felt like it was being tickled by something that was neither light nor heavy. It felt a little itchy. Monster. She cursed in her heart. Humph. Chu Luiyue snorted and pretended not to understand what Rong Xiao was saying.
Put me down.
Continue what? How could he still be in the mood to joke in such an emergency? However, Rong Xiao's hand on her waist did not loosen. With a slight movement of his fingers, Chu Luiyue's belt was silently undone and slipped off her body. Rong Xiao. Chu Luiyue gasped and looked at him in surprise. Rong Xiao's movements were extremely fast. He held her waist with one hand and quickly removed the layer of outer clothing on her body with the other. Rip, when the outer clothing fell, it was actually torn apart. Chu Luiyue was even more puzzled. What was Rong Xiao doing? Rong Xiao quickly put away the layer of black and gray outer clothing and also quickly undid the red outer clothing that Chu Luiyue was originally wearing. Chu Luiyue grabbed his wrist. Just as she was about to say something, a cold and harsh voice suddenly came from outside. Stop. The horses sensed danger and stopped in response. They pawed the ground uneasily, raising snowflakes. Several auras quickly approached. Chu Luiyue was slightly shocked. It was Jiang Yuqing and his people. Who is inside the carriage? Jiang Yuqing's cold and harsh voice came from outside. Rong Xiao didn't seem to hear at all. He held Chu Luiyue in his arms and lowered his head to kiss her deeply. He held her slender waist with one hand and quietly removed her hair tie with the other hand. Her black hair fell down. Hearing that there was no movement in the carriage, Jiang Yuqing became more and more impatient. In this world of ice and snow, the road was full of snow. Most people would have already gone home and wouldn't stay outside at all. How could someone travel in a carriage? Furthermore, there was no one driving the carriage. It was only being pulled by two horses. There was obviously a problem. The Jiang mansion is investigating the assassin. Anyone who passes through here will be investigated. The person in the carriage had better cooperate. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. The Jiang mansion's guards who came with him had already surrounded the carriage. The cold wind whistled, and a strong pressure spread out. The air seemed to be condensed. The person in the carriage still didn't react. Jiang Yuqing's eyes narrowed dangerously. This carriage looked spacious and luxurious, but there was no sign of an aristocratic family. Presumably, it wasn't someone of power. If that was the case, there was nothing to worry about. Besides, even if it was someone with a high status, Jiang Yuqing, wouldn't be afraid. If he wanted to investigate someone, who in Shilling City could stop him? Thinking of this, he walked forward with a cold face. With a flick of the knife, he lifted the curtain abruptly. A black streak flashed before his eyes. It was like a huge black feather flying past. Jiang Yuqing frowned and looked inside the carriage. With one look, he was suddenly stunned. There were two people in the carriage. A man in a white brocade robe was sitting inside, and he was holding a woman tightly in his arms. The woman was wrapped in a black cloak from top to bottom. Only her head could be seen leaning against the man's chest. From Jiang Yuqing's perspective, he could only see the woman's slightly messy, soft, glossy black hair. Jiang Yuqing only needed to look at the man to know what the situation was. Recalling the flash of black he saw just now, it should be this man who pulled the cloak and wrapped the woman up in a hurry. He didn't expect to run into such a scene. Jiang Yuqing's face was a little dark. On the contrary, after a flash of displeasure from being interrupted flashed across the man's face, his eyes quickly became clear. Although there was still some intoxication between his eyebrows, like 3 parts of spring, he obviously understood what was happening. He calmly buttoned up the open collar and bent down to whisper something softly in the woman's ear. Only then did he raise his head to look at Jiang Yuqing again. Jiang Mansion? Then you must be eldest young Master Jiang? Jiang Yuqing looked the man up and down suspiciously. Even if he was a man, he had to admit that the man in white in front of him had a noble and perfect appearance and a cold and noble temperament. He was really like a banished immortal. He himself was one of the top few young masters in Shilling City and even had the title of Shilling's most handsome man for many years. But in front of this man in white, he was instantly inferior. If he had seen such a person before, he would definitely have an impression. In other words, this man in white was very likely not from Shilling. Thinking of this, he immediately became vigilant and asked coldly, "Who are you?" Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 663. The man in white smiled faintly. I'm Rong Xiao. Jiang Yuqing quickly went through his mind, but found that he didn't know this name, nor had he heard of it before. I should get off the carriage and greet young Master Jiang, but I'm afraid that's not possible in this situation. I hope young Master Jiang can forgive me. Rong Xiao's voice was low with a hint of laziness. It was an apology, but when it came out of his mouth, there was a sense of laziness and leisure. It was as if he didn't take Jiang Yuqing seriously at all. Jiang Yuqing suppressed his anger. You know me, but I've never seen you before. Rong Xiao's thin lips curled into a smile. Rong Xiao is just an ordinary person. It's normal that young Master Jiang hasn't seen me before. Jiang Yuqing looked at the woman tightly hugged in his arms. Who's the person in your arms? Raise your head. Rong Xiao raised his sword-like eyebrows slightly, hugged the woman even tighter and said with a faint smile, I heard that young Master Jiang is tracking down the assassin. It's understandable that you want to find someone. But the two of us have been in this carriage all this time. We really have nothing to do with the so-called assassin. We'll know whether it's related or not after investigating. Jiang Yuqing rudely interrupted Rong Xiao's words, his eyes still fixed on the woman. Raise your head. It's snowing heavily. These two people should have just stayed at home. Why did they have to travel outside in a carriage? He became more and more suspicious, and even the way he looked at the woman was a little fierce. The smile on Rong Xiao's face faded. Just as he was about to speak, The woman in his arms suddenly grabbed the lapel of his chest, moved her head, and spoke. Rong Xiao, since young Master Jiang is looking for the assassin, he naturally can't miss one. It's okay to just take a look. Hearing this somewhat familiar voice, Jiang Yuqing frowned. This seemed to be, just as this thought flashed through his mind, he saw the woman in Rong Xiao's arms raise her head and look over. A beautiful face appeared before his eyes. It was Chu Luiyue. At this moment, her entire body was tightly wrapped in the black cloak, revealing only her snow-white little face. Her cheeks were stained with 2 traces of crimson, and her eyes were like limpid autumn waters, rippling with light, as if they could suck in a person's soul. Her cherry lips were bright red, moist and full, like a rose that was about to bloom. The flowing light in her eyes was like a faintly discernible silk thread, lingering with sorrow. The icy snow that filled the sky instantly lost its luster, leaving behind only this unparalleled beauty. Jiang Yuqing stared blankly at the woman in front of him. Of course, he recognized this face, but it also seemed very unfamiliar. In his impression, Chu Luiyue was extremely beautiful, but there was always a sense of alienation and coldness about her, making people feel uneasy to get close to her. But at this moment, she was obediently leaning in a man's arms, like a soft cat, making people's hearts soften. She was really lively and fragrant. Chu Luiyue looked at him. I didn't show up just now because I didn't want to meet young Master Jiang in such a situation. But since young Master Jiang is looking for the assassin, I can only do this. I hope young Master Jiang won't take offense. After saying this, she smiled slightly, as if she was a little shy, but full of sweetness. Jiang Yuqing didn't know what to feel in his heart, and his mind was blank. He asked almost subconsciously, "Who is he to you?" Rong Xiao tightened his cloak even more, and the smooth fur collar almost covered half of Chu Luiyue's small face. He said with a faint smile, "I'm Yu Er's fiancé." Jiang Yuqing was stunned. The main reason why Mu Qinghe went to country Yaochen back then wasn't to find the Daijing Yuan Meridian. The main reason why he brought Chu Luiyue back was to deal with the Wanzheng competition. Therefore, he didn't say too much about Chu Luiyue to Jiang Yuqing. As for her having a fiancé, he didn't even mention it. Jiang Yuqing naturally didn't know. But at that moment, Chu Luiyue's smile instantly overlapped with a certain scene in his memory. That person had also revealed such a smile. Even though there was a little shyness, there was more joy and joy. It was as if all the light had gathered in her eyes, bright and brilliant. Jiang Yuqing's heart felt like it was being squeezed by something. The two scenes kept intertwining, almost causing him to be in a mess. For some reason, his hand that was holding the saber trembled slightly. Rong Xiao watched coldly from the sidelines. He sneered in his heart, but his face was indifferent. Eldest young Master Jiang, since we've confirmed that there's no problem, can we leave? Jiang Yuqing suddenly came back to his senses. He looked at Rong Xiao, and his gaze gradually turned cold. He was also a man, so he naturally saw through Rong Xiao's thoughts. That completely possessive attitude was really disgusting. When he thought of the situation between the two of them in the carriage, his heart suddenly burned with an unknown fire. He didn't know where this anger was coming from, but it felt as if it was going to burn his internal organs to ashes. It's snowing heavily. What are the two of you doing here? Jiang Yuqing suppressed the emotions in his heart and asked coldly. Rong Xiao's lips curled into a doting smile as he explained unhurriedly, Princess Yu is summoned by the third princess. Or was summoned to the palace by third princess today. Later on, seeing that it was snowing heavily, I hired a carriage to pick her up. Speaking of this carriage, I have to thank Vice Admiral Mu. If it weren't for him, it might not have been easy to find such a good carriage quickly. Just 2 short sentences, but they contained too much information. Chu Luiyue widened his eyes slightly and glanced at him. Rong Xiao actually asked Mu Qinghe to help find this carriage? When did the two of them meet? How did Mu Qinghe agree to help? Jiang Yuqing was also shocked. He looked at Chu Luiyue. Did the third princess summon you to the palace today? Why did she look for you? Chu Luiyue nodded and said, it was just a casual conversation. It was just a casual chat. Later, third princess was busy looking after His Majesty, so I came back. Looking at Chu Liuyue's expression, it seemed that nothing had happened. However, Jiang Yuqing still felt uneasy. Shang Guanwan was too sudden. The two of them talked so much today, but she didn't mention this matter at all. Also, Mu Qinghe asked him to investigate the residence on 6 Cloud Street. How did it suddenly have anything to do with Rong Xiao? Help. But no matter what, Rong Xiao's words were reasonable. Moreover, whether it was Chu Luyue entering the palace or Mu Qinghe helping, it couldn't be faked. It was almost impossible to pick out anything strange or wrong with these two explanations. Jiang Yuqing's suspicions gradually disappeared, and he finally took a step back. All right, it's all a misunderstanding. Since it has been clarified, you can leave. As he spoke, he waved his hand, and the guards behind him immediately stepped aside. The horse seemed to have a mind of its own as it raised its hooves and walked forward. However, just as it moved, Jiang Yuqing suddenly thought of something and quickly stepped forward to stop the carriage. He stared at the two of them closely, full of scrutiny and oppression, and asked in a deep voice, "No, the third princess went to the Jiang mansion early. Chu Luyue should have left the palace long ago. Why are you still on the road after spending so much time?" Chu Luyue's hand slightly tightened. Then he heard the man beside him chuckle and say with a faint smile, "This time it's not too long, is it? Is it too long in eldest young Master Zhang's opinion? Digression, Rong Xiao, murderous and heartless. I'm worried that these 2 chapters are sensitive and blocked, so I'll post them first. The rest of the update will continue. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from AI Network. Chapter 664. Chu Luyue swore with her life that Jiang Yuqing's face darkened for a moment. She silently glanced at Rong Xiao. What a ruthless sentence. What a vicious man. She liked it. Without waiting for Jiang Yuqing to get angry, Rong Xiao continued. When you are with your beloved, even if you are talking about the most boring things in the world, it is also the most interesting thing. Naturally, you will forget the time. He reached out and slowly combed Chu Luyue's hair. I haven't seen you for a long time, and I miss her very much. I'm afraid that it's not enough for me to see her. How can I be in the mood to look at the time? His voice was low and gentle, and his deep eyes looked at Chu Luyue as if he was looking at the most precious treasure in the world. Chu Luyue's heart seemed to be hit by something soft, and it overflowed with sourness and sweetness. She leaned into Rong Xiao's arms and obediently put her cheek on his chest, feeling at ease. With this man around, he would naturally help her solve all her problems. She didn't need to worry about anything. She just needed to watch and listen well. Jiang Yuqing clenched his fists. Because of the force, his knuckles turned white, and the veins on his forehead bulged. Rong Xiao's words didn't leave any room for rebuttal. And the scene of the two of them snuggling together was inexplicably dazzling. Let's go. He took a deep breath and turned to leave quickly. Many guards immediately chased after him. Soon, the group of figures disappeared from the street. The surroundings finally quieted down, and the oppressive aura completely dissipated. The curtain was put down, covering everything outside. Chu Luyue closed her eyes and slowly exhaled. Almost if Rong Xiao hadn't appeared in time, it would have been difficult for her to escape unscathed today. Jiang Yuqing was a vengeful person. She hurt him, so he would definitely pursue it to the end. In the following days, the West Hill would probably be lively. Now you know fear? Rong Xiao raised his eyebrows. You were bold when you did it. Chu Luyue was teased by him, but she didn't think much of it. Instead, she asked with interest, "Did you really come out today to pick me up? Or did you deliberately come here to wait?" Rong Xiao didn't deny it and smiled. Strictly speaking, it was indeed both. Initially, he was rather worried when he heard that Shang Guanwan had summoned Chu Luyue to the palace. Since Mu Qinghe was there, he asked him to help. Of course, it wasn't that he couldn't find a good carriage. It was just that he didn't like Mu Qinghe. In the end, he didn't manage to fetch Chu Luyue. Finally, he found out that she was in the Jiang residence. So he drove the carriage here. This was right was Cheng was Xiao was Yuqing. S. Rong Xiao. Was. Even if Jiang Yuqing had doubts, there was nothing he could do if he couldn't find any flaws. Chu Liyue glanced at his expression and guessed something. She couldn't help but sigh. Rong Xiao, why are you always there when I need you? Not once, not twice. Every time she thought she was in trouble and had nowhere to run, he would always appear and pull her back from the edge of danger into his arms. How could there be such a person in this world? He knew what she knew, liked what she liked, and hated what she hated.
He would always give her the best.
Was it really God's mercy in this life? Rong Xiao kissed her gently between her eyebrows. I promised you, so I will do it. Chu Liyue played with a jade button on his collar with one hand and murmured in a daze, I don't remember you saying that. The jade button was so tight, but Rong Xiao opened it with his fingers just now. Rong Xiao looked at her deeply. There seemed to be countless undercurrents surging in his eyes, but they finally returned to calmness. He restrained the look in his eyes, leaned close to her ear and whispered, Actually, this thing needs to be done carefully. Do you want me to teach you? Chu Liyue looked up and glared at him with her bright and watery eyes. I know how to do it even if you don't teach me. Who are you looking down on? Her long hair was scattered, and she was wrapped in a black cloak like a silkworm. She was angry, and her cheeks were flushed. She was extremely cute. Rong Xiao laughed out loud. Okay, then I'll let you practice for free. How about it? The carriage started moving again. The carriage swayed, and Chu Liyue's hand slipped slightly. It was not easy for her to untie it halfway, but it went back. Chu Liyue wrinkled her nose and used all her strength indignantly. Rip. Chu Liyue stared blankly at the jade button that fell in her hand and the collar that had been forcefully torn open. She was speechless. This doesn't seem to be a good idea. Rong Xiao leaned against the wall of the carriage and smiled lazily. It seems that you're really anxious. Chu Liyue innocently raised the jade button and smiled embarrassedly. That you misunderstood. Actually, I think the quality of your clothes is not good enough. Rong Xiao seemed to have seen through everything and moved closer to her. The two of them looked at each other and breathed. It's snowing heavily today. I'm afraid you won't be able to return to the Chongshu Pavilion. There's still half a day and one night left. You can do whatever you want. Chu Liyue, it's really a misunderstanding. In the heavy snow, the carriage gradually moved further and further away. The street regained its calm. Other than the two ruts in the snow, nothing seemed to have happened. However, on the other side, Jiang Yuqing's heart was burning with a ball of fire. The scene that he saw just now kept replaying in his mind. That woman's delicate and shy appearance was an expression that would only appear when facing her sweetheart. She was originally very beautiful. Jiang Yuqing had long known. She was somewhat similar to that person. Jiang Yuqing also knew. Other than the first time they met, when he saw that bright and brilliant smile that shocked him for a long time, he had basically gotten used to seeing that face after that. The two of them were as different as clouds and mud, and there was no comparison at all. Especially that glance outside the zither room in Thousand View Garden. He had already completely separated the two of them in his heart. He thought that the throbbing in the depths of his heart had completely dissipated. But when he saw her again today, he realized that it wasn't like that. Chu Liyue seemed to have a strange and subtle temperament that always made him involuntarily want to take another look. She was similar to that person but also different. Relatively speaking, although Chu Liyue's background wasn't as noble, and her temperament and self-cultivation couldn't be compared to that person's, she had a more vigorous vitality. That was the tenacity in her bones. Those who hadn't experienced hardship wouldn't have such a feeling. In other words, that person was like the sun in the clouds that he could only look up to. Even if he had a marriage agreement with her, he always felt that there was something between them. Sometimes, he even felt that he couldn't even reach the corner of her clothes. But Chu Liyue was different. She was similarly lively and beautiful, but also within his reach. What made Jiang Yuqing feel at a loss and faintly flustered was that Chu Liyue he seemed to be unable to resist. Eldest young master. Digression, Jiang Yuqing. That's a woman within my reach. Rongxiu. No. That's the road to the underworld that's within your reach. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 665. Jiang Yuqing came back to his senses. The guard beside him looked at him worriedly. Eldest young master, are you all right? Ever since the carriage left just now, eldest young master had been absent-minded and silent all the way. It really looked a little strange. Could it be that eldest young master's injuries were too serious? Jiang Yuqing's face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. What can happen to this young master? Continue to search. Yes. Jiang Yuqing raised his head. It was still snowing, and the entire Shilling City was covered with a thick layer of snow. If the snow was getting heavier, it would be more convenient for Xiaomu to escape. He lifted his foot and quickly moved forward. Jiang Yuqing spent a lot of manpower and resources. He almost turned half of Shilling City upside down, but he still couldn't find Xiaomu. He couldn't even find a trace of him. This person seemed to have disappeared into thin air. When night fell, Jiang Yuqing returned to the mansion. However, he sent a group of people outside to search. In the study, Feng Shangyuan treated Jiang Yuqing's wounds again and checked his pulse. His face was solemn. Eldest young master, your body was seriously injured some time ago, and you used a special method to hide your aura. The damage to your body is too great. In addition to today's injuries, if you don't rest well, I'm afraid that you will suffer from a chronic illness in the future. Jiang Yuqing closed his eyes. His body was injured, and he had been running around outside for a day. His face looked a little pale. The gloomy mood in his heart was still hovering and couldn't dissipate. It made him frown. Seeing him like this, Feng Shangyuan couldn't help but sigh. This old man is not an alarmist. Eldest young master, this old man knows your body best. You really can't torture yourself anymore. If it affects your future cultivation, then the gains won't make up for the losses. These words finally made Jiang Yuqing open his eyes. It's that serious? Feng Shangyuan nodded seriously. So, during this period of time, don't worry too much. If there's anything, try to leave it to the subordinates. Have a good rest. Jiang Yuqing waved his hand irritably. Easy for you to say. Shang Guanwan was about to start making arrangements for that matter, and even the wedding would be put on the agenda soon after. Where would he find the time to rest? Feng Shangyuan was about to persuade him again when he heard Jiang Yuqing say, "You can go back first. I want to be alone for a while." Feng Shangyuan sighed in his heart. He could only turn around and leave. When he reached the door, he bumped into Sun Qi, who had just returned in a hurry. Sun Qi bowed to Feng Shangyuan and then quickly walked in. Feng Shangyuan looked back, shook his head, and left. In the room, Sun Qi walked up to Jiang Yuqing with snow on his head. "Young master, I've already gone to Xiaomu's residence, but I couldn't find him." Furthermore, from the testimonies of the people around him, he had never returned at all. This answer was within Jiang Yuqing's expectations. After doing such a thing, how could Xiaomu not know that he would die if he went back? Did you find out if there's anything unusual about him recently? Not at all. Xiaomu had no parents, and his face was disfigured. He had become mute and had been living alone. Qi Dai lived very close to him, and the two of them had a deep relationship. Other than that, the two of them didn't have much contact with others. For the past year or so, they had been like ordinary people. There was nothing wrong with them. Jiang Yuqing pondered for a moment and asked, "What about the remaining half of the people today? They've all been locked up in Wudong Garden. Someone is guarding them. Brother Qi is locked up alone." As Sun Qi spoke, he glanced at him and asked tentatively, "Young master, what do you think should we do with these people?" "Just lock them up first. Get Qi Dai here first. I'll interrogate him personally." Sun Qi was a little worried. "But young master, you were injured today and ran around outside. Why don't we interrogate him tomorrow?" Jiang Yuqing looked at him coldly. "If you have the time to be long-winded, why don't you go and find Xiaomu?" Sun Qi didn't dare to say anything else and agreed. At the same time, 6 Cloud Street, Chu Mansion. The former coachman, Yan Qing, who had been driven back by his master early, was looking at the snow in boredom and sighing. Sigh, master's thoughts are getting more and more unpredictable now. He even wants me to drive the carriage myself. I don't know if he has picked up Miss Luyu. A silhouette quietly descended from the side of the wall and quickly walked towards them. Yenqing took a look and retracted his gaze. Umo was shocked to see him. He stared at him and asked, "Why are you here?"
He looked around.
Master doesn't seem to be here. Why is Yenqing here alone? Where's Master? You didn't follow him? Yenqing glanced at him coldly. Master has his reasons for doing what he wants to do. Why do you care so much? Mo chuckled. I'm just worried that you have nothing to do. Yenqing sneered and said disdainfully, You have something to do? Mo leaned over and lowered his voice. Then, he said mysteriously and proudly, That's right. I beat up that fourth Miss Jiang again. Yenqing was a little surprised. Hasn't she been staying in the Jiang mansion recently? Don't tell me you went in. No. She came out today. I happened to see her. Isn't it a coincidence? Since I've met her, of course I have to show her. Jiang Yuji hadn't gone out during this period. Mo waited for 2 days. Seeing that she was obedient, he gave up. He didn't expect that he would have an unexpected gain when he went out today. She was destined to have this tribulation. I can't help it. As Mo spoke, he moved his fist and felt a little regretful. Tisk, it's a pity that she brought someone with her this time. I didn't have enough fun. The corner of Yenqing's mouth twitched. Do you really plan to beat her every time you see her? It's not like you didn't see what Master did last time. This is considered good. That's true. She brought this upon herself. Isn't she so presumptuous because she has a backer? She's talking as if our Miss Luyu doesn't have one. It's just hitting a stone with an egg. If I don't teach her a lesson, she will definitely do it again in the future. Yenqing agreed. Suddenly, the sound of a carriage came from outside the courtyard. Yenqing hurriedly rushed over and quickly opened the door. Mo followed closely behind. A carriage was parked in front of the door. A slender hand lifted the curtain. Rong Xiao got out of the carriage. Master. However, she saw Rong Xiao lightly nod his head and bring someone down from the carriage. Greetings, Miss Luyu. Yenqing and Mo shouted in unison. Chu Luyue was a little surprised. Mo, you're here too? Rong Xiao had been in West Hill for a while. Usually Yenqing followed him, but she didn't see Mo much. She thought that he didn't come. Mo scratched his head awkwardly. He couldn't say that he didn't show up previously because his face was bruised and swollen. He coughed and changed the topic. Master, Miss Luyu, it's cold outside. Let's go in. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 666. After a day of torment in Chu Luyue, he could finally return to his home and have a good rest. However, the Jiang residence on the other side was not so peaceful. After being detained for a day, Qi De was escorted to Jiang Yuqing's study at night. The cold wind was bone-chilling, and it seemed to freeze his bones. Even his heart was almost completely cold. The door was closed from behind. In front of him was Jiang Yuqing, who was sitting behind the table with a cold and dignified expression. The dim yellow light shone on his face, and it was cold and eerie. Qi De shivered all over. For a moment, his entire body stiffened, and he could not move.
Bang!
Sun Qi kicked him in the knee from behind. Why aren't you kneeling when you see eldest young master? Qi De knelt on the ground with a plop in pain. The pain in his knee made his face pale. He finally reacted and hurriedly kowtowed. Spare me, eldest young master. Spare me, eldest young master. Jiang Yuqing looked at him expressionlessly. Tell me, what's going on with Xiaomu? Qi De paused and felt bitter in his heart. Eldest young master, I really don't know. Xiaomu is introverted and very timid. He doesn't even go out often. I don't know why he did this. Although he also had a lot of resentment towards Jiang Yuqing in his heart, he would at most complain a little in private. He would never dare to do anything. They knew very well what kind of person Jiang Yuqing was. It wasn't like they hadn't seen his methods before. How could they dare to go against him? But Xiaomu actually injured Jiang Yuqing. Even he was shocked for a long time when he heard that. Until now, he still couldn't understand why Xiaomu did this. You have the best relationship with him. Don't you know what he wants to do? Qide wanted to cry, but had no tears. I really don't know. Eldest young master, please understand. Everything was fine when I came here with Xiaomu today. Jiang Yuqing pondered for a moment. Xiaomu must have attacked him on the spur of the moment. Otherwise, he wouldn't have used just one brush. However, when Xiaomu attacked, he was extremely steady, accurate, and ruthless. Jiang Yuqing even suspected that Xiaomu had long held a grudge against him, which was why he suddenly used so much strength. Has he ever told you that he harbors hatred for me? Qide pondered for a moment, his expression conflicted.
Hmm.
Jiang Yuqing raised his tone slightly, with a hint of coercion. Qide hurriedly lowered his head and pressed his forehead against the ground. No, I really didn't. He followed this young master to the southern border. His face was ruined, and he became a mute. Do you really not have any complaints? Jiang Yuqing didn't believe it. He knew in his heart how these people viewed him, but he didn't mind. In any case, they couldn't do anything. But now, Xiaomu had injured him. Of course, he would pursue the matter to the end. Qide had no choice but to say, "This. He has always been loyal to the eldest young master. He wouldn't do this to you." Jiang Yuqing gave Sun Qi a look. Sun Qi immediately stepped forward and slapped Qide hard.
Slap.
Tell the truth. If you lie, I'll cut off your tongue. Qide lost 2 teeth, and his mouth was full of blood. He opened his mouth, but something seemed to be stuck in his throat, and he couldn't speak. Xiaomu had saved his life. He couldn't. Jiang Yuqing narrowed his eyes. How could he not see through Qide's thoughts? Such stubbornness was obviously to protect Xiaomu. He suddenly asked, "Since you don't admit it, then I won't pursue this matter. Let me ask you, Xiaomu, why did his cultivation suddenly regress to the peak of the 4th stage?" Qide was suddenly stunned. He raised his head and looked at Jiang Yuqing in a daze. Peak of the 4th stage? Impossible, he's still in the same realm as before? Although his body was seriously injured after returning and he couldn't advance no matter how hard he cultivated, he definitely didn't return to the peak of the 4th stage. A white light suddenly flashed in Jiang Yuqing's mind. He immediately stood up and stared at Qide. Is what you said true? Are you sure that he's not at the peak of the 4th stage? Qide didn't know why he was like this, and only nodded blankly. Yes, eldest young master, is there something wrong? Jiang Yuqing's expression changed quickly. So that's how it is. That Xiaomu was a fake. During this period of time, did you notice anything different about Xiaomu? He asked anxiously. Qide thought for a long time and shook his head hesitantly. No, he's always been like that. Jiang Yuqing instantly thought of the appearance of that Xiaomu. He was thin and small, his face was full of scars, and he wore half an iron mask. Most importantly, he was mute. Such a person was extremely easy to disguise. Even if he silently changed into another person, who would be able to see the change when he stood there silently with his head lowered. Jiang Yuqing gradually clenched his fists. What he could confirm now was that the Xiaomu who injured him today wasn't the real Xiaomu. As for the real Xiaomu, he had probably been dealt with long ago. Unfortunately, he couldn't confirm when this person was changed, and he didn't know who would pretend to be Xiaomu and deliberately sneak into the Jiang residence. As long as that person removed his disguise and changed into his own appearance, who would know? Given the current situation, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to investigate this matter. Jiang Yuqing paced back and forth in the room in extreme frustration. As he walked, he kept looking at the brush on the table. Who could have such strength and movement skills? Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks. Peak of the 4th stage, wasn't Xu Luyue the one? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 6, 67. A burst of burning pain suddenly came from his lower abdomen. Jiang Yuqing frowned, and his face instantly turned pale. Sun Qi immediately stepped forward and asked nervously, "Eldest young master, what's wrong?" Jiang Yuqing waved his hand. "Nothing. Take him down first." "Yes." Qi Dai was confused. He had already said what he needed to say. Why was the eldest young master still unwilling to let him go? He really didn't do anything to let the eldest young master down. Sun Qi walked to Qi Dai's side and glanced at Jiang Yuqing hesitantly. "Eldest young master, then." Jiang Yuqing gave him a look and was a little impatient. "Follow the plan." Sun Qi immediately agreed. A trace of uneasiness emerged in Qi Dai's heart. Follow the plan? What plan? His intuition told him that bang. Sun Qi's hand directly chopped Qi Dai until his two eyes rolled back and he fainted. Then, he personally dragged Qi Dai out. After the door was closed, Jiang Yuqing was the only one left in the room. He took a deep breath and walked towards the bed behind the screen. After taking off his clothes, he carefully examined the wound on his lower abdomen. The burning pain just now only appeared for a moment and then dissipated. A brush was stabbed straight in, causing a small wound. Plus, Feng Shangyuan had already treated it for him, so it was already getting better. But that strange burning pain really made Jiang Yuqing worried. He sat cross-legged, circulated his force, and carefully checked the situation in his body, but didn't find any problems. After thinking about it, he asked someone to invite Feng Shangyuan over. After hearing his description, Feng Shangyuan was also full of surprise. But after repeatedly checking Jiang Yuqing's pulse 3 times, he still didn't find anything wrong. This eldest young master doesn't seem to have any other problems apart from these injuries. "What's the pain you mentioned?" Jiang Yuqing frowned. "It's like a fire, but it's fleeting. I checked myself and there's no problem, but this pain is really strange." He was cautious and suspicious by nature, not to mention that this matter involved his body. It was impossible for him not to care. Feng Shangyuan looked ashamed. "It's probably because my medical skills aren't good enough. Why don't I find someone else to take a look at eldest young master?"
No.
Jiang Yuqing shook his head. Feng Shangyuan was a little puzzled.
Why?
Mingxi and the other lords are still reliable, and they probably won't reveal your body's condition. Those 3 heavenly doctors were Shangguan Wan and Jiang Yuqing's confidants. If not, they wouldn't have been specially chosen to take care of the emperor. Jiang Yuqing didn't say anything, but his cold and solemn expression made Feng Shangyuan's heart race. Could it be that eldest young master no longer trusted those people?
Now is a critical time.
I can't reveal anything about my body's condition. Thus, even for the few of them, it was best for them to not know what to do. What of Jiang of those words of his? Feng Shangyuan did not ask further. "Then I'll go back and look through the medical books to see if I can find anything." Jiang Yuqing nodded. After Feng Shangyuan left, Jiang Yuqing got up, walked to the table, and looked at the pen carefully. The blood stains on it had already dried. Other than the first time, he couldn't see any traces. Jiang Yuqing looked at the table with one hand and fell into deep thought. Did this matter have anything to do with Chu Luiyue? In Shilling City, there were many martial artists at the peak of the 4th stage, but he couldn't think of anyone who had such guts and acted so accurately and ruthlessly. But Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiao had alibis. Moreover, it was impossible for the people in the palace and Mu Qinghe to lie. It seemed that he could only slowly find an opportunity to probe, Jiang Yuqing thought with a frown. If it was really Chu Luiyue, then where did the hatred she had for him come from? Knock knock. Just as Jiang Yuqing was puzzled, there was suddenly a series of hurried knocks on the door. Jiang Yuqing's expression turned cold. It was already so late. Why was there still someone here? Before he could speak, a woman's sobbing voice came from outside the door. Big brother, open the door." It was Jiang Yuji. Jiang Yuqing suppressed the anger in his heart and walked over to open the door. Jiang Yuji was actually wearing a veil that covered most of her face. "What are you doing?" Jiang Yuqing asked with a frown. Jiang Yuji's eyes were red, but Uncle Fu, who was following behind her, immediately knelt down. Eldest young master, please forgive me. It's all my fault. Jiang Yuqing's heart sank. He pulled her directly into the room and pulled off the veil on her face. Her face was bruised and swollen again. Jiang Yuji cried. Big brother, when I went out today, I was beaten up by that person again. Jiang Yuqing's temples were throbbing. There were too many things to complain about, and for a moment, he didn't know what to say. He took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart with great difficulty. He looked at Uncle Fu. What's going on? On such a cold day, Uncle Fu was sweating profusely. He said nervously, Eldest young master, this old servant accompanied fourth miss out today, but when we were settling the bill, fourth miss disappeared. When this old servant found her again, I saw. Fourth miss was already like this. This old servant has failed in his duty. Please punish me, eldest young master. Actually, Uncle Fu was also very wronged. He had been carefully accompanying Jiang Yuji the whole day. Who knew that in such a short time, the other party would actually make a move? Jiang Yuqing had already experienced countless troublesome things in this day, but he didn't expect that they still wouldn't stop in the middle of the night. The aura around him was cold and sinister. What's the use of punishing her now? The key is to find that person. This time, did you see what that person looked like? Jiang Yuji shook her head with tears in her eyes. Uncle Fu said, Eldest young master, since that person was able to quietly take fourth miss away from this old servant, his strength must be above this old servant's. Jiang Yuqing's heart trembled slightly. Although Uncle Fu wasn't a top expert, he wasn't weak either. It would be easy for the other party to send a powerhouse of this level to take Jiang Yuji's life. But the other party didn't do so. This was clearly to torture Jiang Yuji. Thinking of this, he glanced at her and saw that Jiang Yuji looked aggrieved and there was deep fear in her eyes. Big brother, I won't go out in the future. Can you quickly find that person? Last time, Jiang Yuji was still extremely arrogant. Now that she had suffered, she instantly became obedient. Jiang Yuqing's heart ached, and he was angry. In the end, he could only say, Go back and recuperate first. Don't go out during this period of time. I will send someone to investigate this matter. Jiang Yuji didn't have any objections and agreed miserably. Jiang Yuqing didn't sleep well that night. He had nightmares. That faintly discernible burning sensation always reminded him of a big fire. And this time, in his sleep, he became the person in the fire. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 668. The next day, the news that someone had infiltrated the Jiang residence and tried to assassinate Jiang Yuqing spread throughout Shilling City. Of course, no one dared to talk about it openly, but they had all kinds of guesses in private. After all, Jiang Yuqing had offended too many people, and there were too many people who wanted his life. It was a long story. In the beginning, he was just an ordinary eldest son of the Jiang family, holding a position in the imperial court that was neither important nor small. Because of his outstanding talent and family background, his future was bright. But in Shilling City, there were many outstanding young disciples. Jiang Yuqing wasn't the most outstanding one in all aspects. The reason why he was able to soar in these few years and reach his current position was all because of his engagement with the Empress concubine. Perhaps because of his outstanding appearance, or perhaps because of his good background and talent, the Empress concubine chose him to be her fiancé. After the engagement was set, his status immediately changed. Who didn't know that the Empress concubine would be the next empress? Moreover, the Empress concubine was born with a Tianjing Yuan meridian. In the hearts of the entire Tianling dynasty, she was the most respected person. In addition, the Empress concubine had done many things over the years, such as quelling rebellions, reducing taxes, and so on. Her reputation was once close to that of the current emperor. In the hearts of the people, she was different. She was a high and mighty existence that they could only look up to. And Jiang Yuqing became the Empress concubine's fiancé, so naturally, his status rose. Countless people secretly tried to rope him in and curry favor with him. This allowed Jiang Yuqing to quickly accumulate connections. Later, as his marriage with the Empress concubine gradually progressed, his relationship with the Empress concubine also became closer. He learned a lot by following her. After that, the Empress concubine would give some things to him to handle. He naturally became the person who understood the Empress concubine's style and methods the most. After the Empress concubine passed away, the imperial court was in chaos. He quickly joined forces with the third princess and used thunderous methods to suppress them. At the same time, he eliminated a portion of the people who claimed to have betrayed the Empress concubine. Thus, with the emperor in a coma and the Empress concubine dead, there was no leader. After he and the third princess took care of these matters, they naturally took the position. Later, he and the third princess formed an engagement. Regarding this matter, the world had always had different opinions. Some felt that he was doing this to stabilize the imperial court, while others felt that he was fighting for power. In the process, it was inevitable that he would offend many people. It was actually quite normal for someone to assassinate him now. However, on the same day, another important piece of news came from the palace. In the imperial court, the third princess discussed with all the officials and decided to marry Jiang Yuqing on the 6th of June. Calculating the time, it was about 3 months later. It was like a clap of thunder. Everyone knew that the day of the wedding was the day when third princess Shengguanwan ascended the throne. Chu estate. In the room, Chu Luyue sat cross-legged, holding his breath and concentrating. The origin power of heaven and earth in the surroundings flowed into her body endlessly, passing through her limbs and bones before finally converging into the water droplet in her dantian. The 4 lines were bright and clear on the surface of the water droplet. Chu Luyue faintly felt as if he had touched an invisible barrier. She knew very well that it was the threshold of a rank 5 warrior. After the battle at the Square Stream sect meeting, the power in her body had become much more solid. Thinking about it, it was time to choose to break through now. Chu Luyue placed both hands on her knees and sped up the flow of origin power in her body. Above her head, an energy vortex quickly appeared. Waves of origin power quickly flowed in. The aura and pressure around her also began to rise at a speed visible to the naked eye. Outside the door, Rong Xiu walked along the corridor. Before he reached, he seemed to have sensed something and looked at the room. A faint ripple could be felt coming from it. His eyes moved slightly, and he stood still on the spot. With a wave of his sleeve, a silver barrier quickly enveloped the entire room. Master. When Yanqing arrived, he had just shouted when he saw his master standing in the corridor with his hands behind his back, as if waiting for something. He immediately shut up tactfully and looked at the room where Chu Luyue was. When he saw the silver barrier, he thought for a moment and understood. Master is protecting Miss Luyu? Could it be that Miss Luyu is going to break through again? Yanqing sighed in his heart. Miss Luyu's breakthrough speed was too fast. In less than a year, she went from a good-for-nothing to the peak of rank 4 and was about to break through to rank 5. Even if it was a cultivator with the same Daijing Yuan Meridian talent, it would be very difficult to achieve this step. Moreover, she was a triple cultivator. Apart from martial artist cultivation, the ranks of Xian Master and Celestial Physician were also constantly increasing. Even if she was placed in their place, she would not lose to others. Sensing Yanqing's arrival, Rong Xiu turned his head and looked over. What's the matter? Yanqing stepped forward and bowed. Master, 36 revered Elder Ming is back. He's waiting in the front hall. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows. So fast. At that time, 36 revered Elder Ming had come to Xiling with him. However, after arriving, he asked 36 revered Elder Ming to help investigate a matter. 36 revered Elder Ming was unwilling at first. He wanted to see Chu Luyue before leaving. In the end, he was persuaded by Rong Xiu. According to Rong Xiu's previous estimation, 36 revered Elder Ming would only return in half a month. He didn't expect it to be so fast. He turned around and glanced at the silver barrier, but he didn't move. Yanqing hesitated for a moment and asked, Master, aren't you going now? Rome Xiao was calm. Wait a little longer. Wait for what? Of course, he was waiting for Chu Luyue to break through. Yanqing was very puzzled. It was naturally a good thing that Miss Luyu had broken through to rank 5. However, why did Master still want to guard her personally? At this level, there shouldn't be any problems. It should be over soon, however. He didn't dare to say this out loud. He could only say, then I'll go back and report to 36 revered elders first. Rong Xiao nodded. However, just as Yanqing turned around and was about to leave, he saw a figure walking over from not far away. It was 36 revered Elder Ming. His footsteps seemed slow, but in the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of him silently. Yanqing immediately bowed, but 36 revered Elder Ming waved his hand. No need, no need. I'm here to see the little princess consort. As he spoke, he looked curiously at Chu Liyue's room and asked in surprise. Is she going to break through? Rong Xiao, didn't you say that she's still a rank 4 warrior? Why are you guarding her now? For convenience, he disguised himself as an elder of Mingyue Tianshan this time. Therefore, he no longer addressed Rong Xiao as Your Highness and called him by his name. Rong Xiao seemed to have expected that he couldn't wait to come, and a smile appeared on his face. Naturally, it's because I need it.
Buzz.
A wave suddenly spread out from the room. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 669. The silver barrier was hit, and it rippled slightly. 36 respected Elder Ming was a little surprised. Is she about to break through to become a rank 5 martial artist? Rong Xiao nodded. 36 respected Elder Ming looked at the surging heaven and earth force and was even more surprised. This movement doesn't seem like it. Rank 5 martial artist. When a cultivator broke through this threshold, it wouldn't cause too much of a commotion. Not to mention them, even the normal cultivators in Shilling City wouldn't pay much attention to it, and were all used to it. Rong Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. If her breakthrough was really the same as normal people, why would he do this? 36 respected Elder Ming's heart skipped a beat when he saw Rong Xiao's expression.
Buzz.
Another movement came. This time, it was even more obvious than the previous one. The heaven and earth force started to surge in at an even faster speed. 36 respected Elder Ming watched for a while and became interested. It seemed like this girl was unusual. He also wanted to see how capable the woman who could make Rong Xiao so worried about her was. In the room, Chu Liyue's shoulders drooped slightly. She placed her hands on her knees, with her palms facing up. The energy vortex above her head became bigger and bigger, and its spinning speed became faster and faster. Vaguely, Chu Liyue could even hear the sound of surging tides. That was the sound of abundant heaven and earth force surging into her body. Waves of vigorous heaven and earth force swam in her body and kept washing her yuan meridian before finally pouring into the water droplet. However, even with so much heaven and earth force surging in, the water droplet didn't move for a long time. The invisible barrier was within reach, but when Chu Liyue tried to break through, she realized that the energy required to take this step was much greater than expected. Whoosh, whoosh, heaven and earth force surged inside and outside her body, and even her eardrums seemed to be gurgling. Suddenly, a cluster of bright red flames emerged from her left palm. That flame danced excitedly like a spirit and then started to attract even more heaven and earth force toward her. Chu Liyue's body was like a bottomless pit, crazily devouring the energy of heaven and earth. The scarlet flames refined the energy, and the origin power carried a scorching aura as it poured into his dantian. Half of Chu Liyue's body began to heat up. Shortly after, a strand of origin power floated out from the water droplet. Like smoke, it slowly spread to her internal organs. Chu Liyue's eyebrows twitched slightly.
Chi.
A colorless flame quickly appeared on his right hand. It was the karmic fire in the heavenly square cauldron. At this moment, it was burning quietly and had also begun to compete for the origin power of heaven and earth. He quickly refined it and poured it into Chu Liyue's body. Unlike the origin power that had been tempered by the scarlet flames earlier, the origin power that surged out of the transparent karmic fire actually carried a trace of coldness. Like a stream of icy cold snow, it gradually spread, causing the other half of her body to become cold. However, this cold qi was very different from the cold qi inside Chang Wanzhou's body, because this kind of cold qi was extremely pure and unadulterated. Very quickly, a strand of origin power with coldness also surged out of the water droplet and similarly spread to her internal organs. Chu Liyue sat there quietly, but there were two extremely different types of energy mixing together in her body. Ice and fire had always been on opposite sides, but Chu Liyue's body was like a huge and incomparably magical container that fused all of these together. Half of her body was burning. Half of her body was icy cold. Within Chu Liyue's body, the two types of burning and chilling feelings were constantly intertwined. And during this process, the origin power consumed by the devouring was extremely terrifying. Outside the door, 36 respected Elder Ming and Yan Qing looked at the energy vortex in the courtyard with a shocked expression. That was formed because Chu Liyue had absorbed too much of the origin power of heaven and earth. Until now, the energy that Chu Liyue had absorbed was already sufficient for 2 peak rank 4 to break through to rank 5. However, she had no intention of stopping.
Buzz, buzz, buzz.
Ripples of energy spread out. The silver enchantment that Rong Xiao had set up was constantly rippling. If it wasn't for his enchantment, the courtyard would have been swept away by the energy contained in the ripples. 36 respected Elder Ming glanced at Rong Xiao faintly. You guessed it long ago? Rong Xiao smiled but didn't say a word. The commotion caused by this girl breaking through to a rank 5 warrior is really not small. If this continues, she will almost be comparable to a rank 6 warrior. There were a total of 9 ranks for a cultivator, and rank 3 was a threshold. For a cultivator to break through the barrier of rank 3, 6, and 9 was extremely important to their entire cultivation career. Chu Liyue, this boom. A roar suddenly came from the room. 36 respected Elder Ming immediately looked over and widened his eyes in shock. She is going to connect the 5 internal organs. The 5 internal organs referred to the heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys. The so-called connecting the 5 internal organs meant that after a cultivator reached a certain level, they could use the dantian as the center to connect the 5 internal organs and use the origin power of heaven and earth to connect them to the dantian. In this way, the 5 internal organs that were connected to the dantian were equivalent to a pill of origin in another sense. The more the 5 internal organs were connected, the faster the cultivator's cultivation speed would increase. But in fact, connecting the 5 internal organs had extremely high requirements for the cultivator. Ordinary cultivators would only attempt this when they were breaking through to a rank 6 warrior. They might not succeed. According to the difference in talent and physique, the number of the 5 internal organs was also different. Some could connect a few at once, while some could only connect one. Many cultivators didn't connect all the internal organs even after becoming a rank 7 warrior. But Chu Liyue was just about to break through to a rank 5 warrior, so how could she connect the 5 internal organs? Digression, mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 670. Generally speaking, the better one's talent, the earlier one could unlock the 5 treasures and the higher the chance of success on the first try. But other than Rong Xiao, 36 respected Elder Ming had never seen anyone try this when they broke through to become a stage 5 warrior. This could only prove that Chu Liyue's ability far exceeded her realm. Rong Xiao looked back and looked at the room that was constantly emitting waves. His gaze was deep. Actually, he didn't expect it at first, but when he brought her back yesterday, he was surprised to find the vigorous force in her body. Once she started to break through, it was very likely to cause a huge commotion. The result was indeed so. 36 respected Elder Ming was shocked, and didn't say anything for a while. And that silver barrier was shaking even more violently. Chu Luyue had actually expected this scene before she broke through. But when she sensed that the two forces of ice and fire were starting to spread toward her internal organs, she was still shocked. In her previous life, she had the Tianjing Yuan Meridian, and indeed, she had already started to unlock the 5 treasures when she broke through to rank 5. But now, her body had the Daijing Yuan Meridian, and logically speaking, she should be like other cultivators, starting from the time of rank 6. A thought flashed across Chu Liyue's mind quickly. Perhaps this was related to the water droplet in her body. But this thought only flashed past her mind. She was only stunned for a moment before she quickly gathered her focus and continued to devour the heaven and earth force around her. Chu Liyue closed her eyes and looked inside. In her dantian, the water droplet was spinning slowly. Streams of origin power gushed out from within and spread to his internal organs in an attempt to connect with them. The surroundings were like endless darkness, and she didn't know when she would be able to find the exit. But Chu Luyue was extremely patient, and she tried bit by bit. After an unknown period of time, a starlight suddenly appeared in the water droplet. Almost at the same time, a subtle feeling of connection was produced. Her heart was unlocked. Thump, thump. Thump, thump. Her heart was beating vigorously, and even the starlight in the water droplet started to shine. The speed of the force circulation in Chu Liyue's body instantly increased by 2 times. The flames in her hands burned even more fiercely. TSK, she actually did it. Sensing that unusual fluctuation, 36 respected Elder Ming finally could not hold back and spoke out. As a revered elder, he was unquestionably a top-notch cultivator. He had seen tens of thousands of cultivation geniuses. On the surface, 36 respected old Ming was all smiles, but in reality, he was an extremely picky person. It was easy to imagine how high the standards of such a person were. At this moment, even he couldn't help but glance at Rong Xiao. No wonder. Brat, your eyesight is quite sharp. Didn't Chu Liyue come from an ordinary family? Didn't they say that she was a good-for-nothing when it came to cultivation? What was going on now? As far as he knew, Rong Xiao had been eyeing the girl ever since she started cultivating. Back then, he had thought that since it was rare for Rong Xiao to fall in love with a girl, even if her background and talent were slightly inferior, it wouldn't matter. Who would have thought that after all this time, this brat had brought along a true genius? To think that he had thought so much before. It was simply a waste of emotions. Rong Xiao raised his eyebrows, and his lips curled into a smile. Thank you for the compliment. Between his brows, there was a proud look that was not concealed at all. 36 respected Elder Ming. How shameless.
Boom.
A series of explosions could be heard. She's still continuing? 36 respected Elder Ming was shocked and hurriedly looked over. Could it be that she can still open the second treasury? In the room, Chu Liyue's eyes were tightly shut. After the first success, the subsequent process became much simpler. Very quickly, the second starlight appeared in the water droplet. This time, it was the liver. After opening 2 treasures in succession, the force in Chu Liyue's body was still surging crazily, and there was no sign of it stopping. Chu Liyue made up her mind and decided to directly open all 5 treasures in one go. Her entire person seemed to have entered some kind of wonderful state, and she completely forgot about the flow of time in the outside world. She only continued to absorb the energy from the outside world, and then converted it into her own force. Again and again, she tried to continue opening the remaining 5 treasures. The water droplet rotated slowly, and the force that surged out also increased. Finally, there was a soft sound. Spleen. The third starlight flashed slowly. 36 respected Elder Ming's expression gradually became serious. Such talent was really hard to come by. Generally speaking, it was actually very difficult for a cultivator who tried to open the 5 treasures for the first time to succeed. There were really very few who could open all 3 treasures in one go. And this, to a certain extent, also foretold the cultivator's potential. If Chu Luiyue could still continue boom. As if to confirm his thoughts, there was another boom in the room. A wave that contained powerful energy spread out in all directions. The barrier shook even more violently. This was already the fourth treasury. 36 respected Elder Ming, who originally didn't care about this matter, already had his entire heart in his mouth at this moment. Even Yanqing's face, which had always been as cold as ice, was now filled with deep shock. Only Rong Xiao had one hand behind his back, and his posture was calm and lazy. It was as if he had already predicted the result. After opening all four treasures, for starlights shone brightly in the water droplet in her dantian. At this moment, Chu Luiyue's speed of absorbing the force had already reached 4 times the initial speed. Fortunately, her yuan meridian was wide and tough enough. Otherwise, it would really be hard for her to withstand such a turbulent force. Waves of force washed through her body. Chu Luiyue could clearly feel that the aura on her body was continuously strengthening. Although her eyes were closed, her 5 senses were obviously much sharper than before. Chu Luiyue held her breath, and a flash of passion flashed across her heart. If she could open the last treasury, it would be extremely beneficial to her cultivation in the future. So, no matter what, she must succeed. The last treasury was undoubtedly the most crucial and also the most difficult checkpoint. Among 1,000 rank 6 martial artists, there might not even be one who could open all 5 treasures. The difficulty was imaginable. Chu Luiyue tried again and again. If the first time didn't work, the second time. If the second time didn't work, the third time. After an unknown period of time, there was still no movement from the 5th treasury. The force in Chu Luiyue's body was constantly depleting. But she still didn't stop, and she still tried her best every time. She was incomparably stubborn and tenacious. It's been so long. The 5th treasury shouldn't be able to open anymore. Looking at the sky, 36 respected Elder Ming muttered to himself. Actually, it's already very outstanding to be able to open the 4th treasury on the first try. It's fine if you really can't open the 5th treasury. Rong Xiao didn't move at all, as if he was still waiting. After a while, his eyes moved slightly.
Boom.
Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 671. The last treasure was successfully unlocked. The 5th star finally appeared in the water droplet. Almost at the same time, Chu Luiyue heard the sound of something shattering.
Bang.
That was the barrier of a rank 5 warrior, finally breaking. As though the floodgates had been opened, a flood poured down. The wind howled and countless waves were swept up. Chu Luiyue retracted her hands, and the 2 balls of flames quickly returned to her body. A powerful aura spread out from Chu Luiyue's body. The 5th pattern gradually appeared on the water droplet.
Buzz.
Chu Luiyue suddenly opened her eyes. There seemed to be 2 balls of flames burning in her eyes. It was extremely bright and brilliant. A true rank 5 warrior. She stretched out her hand and drew a line of origin power. 5 stars were faintly discernible in her palm. Even that force was wrapped in an unusually powerful aura. This level of strength was more than a few times stronger than before. This was the strength of a rank 5 warrior who had unlocked all 5 treasures. Even someone as calm and collected as Chu Luiyue couldn't help but feel agitated at this moment. She had never thought that not only could she be reborn as a human, but she could also cultivate to such a level again. Although there was no way to be compared to her previous self, Chu Luiyue could clearly feel that as her strength increased, she was indeed getting closer to her previous self step by step. There would be a day when she would return to her peak. She would take back everything that belonged to her. When the fluctuations around her gradually dissipated, Chu Luiyue took a deep breath and calmed herself down. She stood up and walked outside. The door opened and a few gazes looked over. Chu Luiyue followed the gaze and looked over. The first to see was Rong Xiao. Standing behind him was Yanqing. Beside him was a green-robed old man with white hair who was looking at her with a smile. This is, Chu Luiyue was puzzled. Rong Xiao waved his sleeves, and the silver barrier disappeared silently. Only then did Chu Liyue realize that he seemed to have set up a barrier outside the room. Is he protecting me? Well, she had caused quite a commotion just now, and it would be troublesome if she attracted someone. She had been in the limelight in West Hill recently, and there were many pairs of eyes looking at her. Although she wasn't afraid, she knew that it was easier to dodge an open spear than an arrow in the dark. It was always better to be careful. Moreover, she had unlocked all 5 treasures as a rank 5 warrior. If this news were to spread, it would probably cause a bloodbath. Thinking of this, a smile appeared on her face. Just as she was about to walk forward, she saw that the old man had already taken a step forward. Little Wang. Little Liyue, right? Although the old man's face was full of wrinkles, his eyes were very clear and he looked hale and hearty. When he walked over, it seemed like he hadn't moved at all, but in the next moment, he was already right before Zhang Xian. Moreover, there was not the slightest bit of power. Chu Liyue's heart tingled. This old man's strength was probably far beyond her expectations. At this moment, he was looking at Chu Liyue with a smile and a curious and eager face. Chu Liyue glanced at Rong Xiao and saw that he was smiling. It was obvious that he had a good relationship with this old man, so she smiled obediently and bowed. Lu Yu greet Sr. 36 respected elder Ming looked at the little girl in front of him happily. Her face was porcelain white, and her eyes were clean. There was a hint of nobility in her eyes. She was really likable. Not bad, not bad. Rong Xiao's taste was indeed good. He liked her the moment he saw her. You don't have to be so polite. This old man's title in Mingyue Tianshan is 36 Ming. You can call me 36 respected elder. So he was an elder from Mingyue Tianshan. Chu Liyue understood and immediately responded obediently. 36 respected elder came to West Hill this time because he has something important to do. He also came here to take a look. Rong Xiao walked over and explained. Chu Liyue nodded and said apologetically. 36 respected elder came from afar. 36th elder, you've come from afar. Please forgive me for not being able to receive you properly. No. This old man knows that you were cultivating just now. This old man has always been free to come and go. I don't care about these formalities. Besides, Rong Xiao is here. It's more important for you to break through. As he spoke, a trace of admiration appeared in his eyes. Little Liyue, your talent is really outstanding. It seemed like he already knew about what had happened just now. Chu Liyue's mind raced. It was hard not to know that an expert of this level was standing here. Moreover, Rong Xiao seemed to have a good relationship with this old man and should be very trusting. In that case, she had nothing to hide. Thank you for your praise, 36 respected elder. Actually, Liyue was just a little lucky. 36 respected elder Ming chuckled. There are people in this world who can't do this even if they use up their lifetime of luck. Little Liyue, you don't have to be humble. It's Rong Xiao's fortune to be able to find you. Rong Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. It seems like someone has suddenly changed sides? Chu Liyue's face turned slightly hot. This was the first time she had heard such words from an outsider. It felt really strange. 36 respected elder Ming no longer had Rong Xiao in his eyes. He only had Chu Liyue left. He had never married in his life and had no children. In the past, he had always treated Rong Xiao as his close relative. Not only did he teach him everything, but he also often gave advice to Rong Xiao. It could be said that without him, there wouldn't be Rong Xiao who sat firmly on the position of Holy Son today. But there was one thing. He had great expectations for Rong Xiao and was relatively strict. But when he saw Chu Liyue, his heart instantly melted. Such a cute and beautiful little girl. Isn't she meant to be pampered? Little Liyue, you're now a rank 5 warrior and have opened your 5 treasures. It's time for you to build a good cultivation foundation and stabilize your advancement. I happen to have some Earth stage martial skills. Why don't you pick them? With that, 36 respected elder Ming shook his hand. Crash. Many jade boxes instantly fell out of the universe ring. Those jade boxes were all lustrous and translucent with a faint aura. It was obvious that the items inside were not ordinary. He coughed. Old man, things are a bit messy. You can put up with it and pick whatever you like. If you don't like it, I still have more. Chu Liuyue's eyes were dazed for a moment. What does this mean? There's actually someone in this world who casually gives an Earth stage martial skill on their first meeting? However, seeing Chu Liuyue's expression, 36 respected Elder Ming misunderstood and thought that she didn't like them. He pondered for a moment, pulled Chu Liuyue's wrist, and walked to the side. He lowered his voice and whispered, "Little Liuyu, if you don't like these then, I actually have better things. However, those are all the sex inheritances. I'm afraid I can only give them to you after you and Rong Xiao get married." Chu Liuyue's brows twitched violently. Does he mean marry Rong Xiao and give her a heaven stage martial skill? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 672. Rong Xiao, who felt as if he had been sold, was speechless. Facing the extremely enthusiastic 36 respected Elder Ming, Chu Liyue was unable to withstand it. She coughed and said, "Thank you, 36th Elder Ming. I appreciate your kind intentions, but this gift is really too precious. Choose one."
Choose one.
36 revered Elder Ming urged. "How can this little thing be considered valuable? I'll give you something better in the future." Chu Liyue was speechless. Little thing, was he talking about these Earth rank martial skills? Were all the top-notch experts now so generous? Chu Liyue still wanted to decline, but Rong Xiao had already walked forward. His gaze swept across the boxes, and he picked one and handed it to Chu Liyue. "This is 36 Elder Ming's kind intentions. Just accept it. Otherwise, according to his character, he might really pester Chu Liyue for half a month because of this matter." Chu Liyue hesitated for a moment and could only accept the jade box. "Thank you, 36 Elder Ming." 36 respected Elder Ming's eyes lit up when he saw the box. He looked at Rong Xiao and chuckled. "You sure know how to pick. This old man wants to give something to little Liuyu, and you didn't forget to interfere?" Chu Liyue looked at the two of them in confusion. Rong Xiao smiled faintly. "It's just in passing." As he spoke, he also took out another identical box from his universe ring and handed it to Chu Liyue. 36 Elder Ming gave you the first volume, and this is the second volume." Chu Liyue was somewhat puzzled. Why was there a need to divide a martial skill into 2 volumes? Suddenly, she widened her eyes slightly. Wait a minute, if the first volume was an Earth rank martial skill, then wouldn't the second volume be a Heaven rank martial skill? Rong Xiao, this second volume. Rong Xiao seemed to have seen through her guess, and his lips curled up slightly. "You are this prince's fiancé. 36 revered Elder Ming is temporarily unable to give you this item, but this prince can." As expected, Chu Liyue immediately confirmed his guess. With the first and second volumes added together, it was definitely a heaven-tier martial skill. And what did Rong Xiao just say? Just in passing? 36 revered Elder Ming said sourly. "You only know how to bully me. When you get married, this old man will give you whatever I want. How could it be your turn?" Chu Liyue was speechless. Is this something to be proud of? The vast majority of cultivators in this world might not even be able to see a heaven-ranked martial skill in their entire lives, but they had actually given it away so casually, and she had just broken through to become a rank 5 warrior, yet she had received such a precious gift out of the blue? Chu Liyue looked at Rong Xiao meaningfully. She was now extremely sure that the Honorable Prince Li, oh no, His Highness Saint was indeed from a wealthy family. Hugging 2 heavy boxes in her arms, Chu Liyue silently thought to herself, so this is the feeling of hugging someone's thigh. Awesome.
Oh.
That's right. I heard from Rong Xiao that you, little Liuyu, are also a Xian master and celestial physician? Although this old man doesn't cultivate these 2, I have collected quite a number of things. As 36 revered Elder Ming spoke, he poured out another pile of things and started picking.
Oh.
This is a level 8 Xian formation. This is for you. And this too. This is for you too. This seems to be a prescription book. Back then, this old man picked it up from a 9. Celestial physician, take it. Chu Luiyue, who was still pretending to be calm at the beginning, finally felt her eyelids twitch violently. Isn't this too extravagant? 36 Revered Elder Ming, these things of yours are really too valuable. However, Rong Xiao had already taken those things and placed them in her arms, not allowing her to reject. 36 Revered Elder does indeed have quite a number of things that are idle. It's a waste to leave them with him. You're just making the best use of them by accepting them. Just take them, Rong Xiao said casually. As he spoke, he glanced at those things a few times, as if he was picking something. 36 Revered Elder Ming, I remember that you have a yuan instrument that can teleport?
Oh.
Yes. That's good too. 36 Revered Elder Ming searched again. After a while, he took out a palm-sized bronze disc and stuffed it into Chu Luiyue's hands. Little Luyu, you've just reached the standard of flying. This is the most suitable thing for you to use. Chu Luiyue was dumbfounded. At the beginning, she tried to dissuade them, but after realizing that she couldn't stop these two people at all, she decisively gave up. How should she put it? This feeling of being thrown money at it still felt good. 36 Respected Elder Ming only stopped when Chu Luiyue's entire body was about to be buried by these gifts after half a day of digging. He sized up Chu Luiyue and shook his head regretfully. Sigh, I'm still lacking. Rong Xiao, you have to hurry up and get married. Otherwise, I can't give you a lot of things. Only when Chu Luiyue became Rong Xiao's princess consort and reached this level of relationship could he continue. Rong Xiao's lips curled up slightly. I'll try my best. Chu Luiyue was speechless. What does this mean? Why does it feel like something isn't right? After Rong Xiao finished speaking, he glanced at her and smiled.
Keep these first.
There's something that you probably don't know yet. Let's go inside and talk. Faced with such a forceful gift, Chu Luiyue felt weak, pitiful, and helpless. She could only obediently put everything into her universe ring. Although the universe ring wasn't heavy, for some reason, Chu Luiyue felt that if she shook it, she would hear countless money rustling. Come to think of it, although I didn't have anything when I was reborn, my luck seems to be ridiculously good. After packing up, the few of them finally entered the house. Chu Luiyue personally brewed tea and received another round of praise from 36 Revered Elder Ming. Little Luyu, the tea you brewed is really good. Chu Luiyue asked curiously. Do you like Jin Junmei? 36 Revered Elder Ming was stunned for a moment before he immediately nodded. Rong Xiao sat at the side and watched the scene with a faint smile. Who didn't know that 36 Revered Elder Ming only drank the ice and snow water that he carried with him? Especially at his level, he didn't care about these things. Although his acting skills were clumsy, he was sincere. Chu Luiyue could roughly tell what was going on, and she found it funny and warm. She could tell that he really liked her and valued her. All of this was because he cared about Rong Xiao. Although she had never heard Rong Xiao mention it before, this old man was extremely important to Rong Xiao. There's a piece of news from the palace today. Rong Xiao took a sip of tea, and the fragrance instantly spread between his lips and teeth. The wedding between the third princess and young Master Jiang is set for the 6th of June. Chu Luiyue was stunned. This is... Shang Wanwan finally can't hold it in anymore. Is she going to ascend the throne? While she was in a daze, she realized that Rong Xiao was looking at her with a deep gaze. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. He seems to care a lot about my reaction? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 673. Actually, this matter was within her expectations. She was even a little surprised that the two of them had only decided on a date now. After all, the two of them had seemed so affectionate on the night of her death. She had thought that after her death, the two of them would be in power and could find a random reason to quickly get married. The two of them were irreconcilable enemies to her. Apart from that, sisters, fiancé, and fiancé, those had long disappeared. Therefore, when she heard this news, she was not surprised at all. She even wanted to laugh. Two people whose bodies were severely injured, getting married at this time was simply asking for a snub. 6th of June, calculating the time, there were only about 3 months left. Actually, this was not a long time. Apart from the wedding, there would definitely be a coronation ceremony. There were many things that would take a lot of time and energy to prepare. She just did not know why the two of them chose this time. Besides, even if they really got married, not to mention Jiang Yuqing, Shangguan, how could a piece of trash with a damaged Yuan meridian pick up the Tianling scepter? It was fine if she used special methods on normal days, but on the day of the wedding, if she could not pick up the Tianling scepter in front of all the officials, the scene would definitely be beautiful. Thinking of this, Chu Luiyue was actually a little excited. TSK. Her bad habit of being a busybody was getting worse. Seeing Chu Luiyue's expression change and a sly smile in the end, Rong Xiu's eyes flashed and his smile deepened. He leaned back in his chair lazily. It seemed that some of his worries were indeed unnecessary. Pretty good. Chu Luiyue smiled. The emperor of the Tianling dynasty has been in a coma for 2 years and has been without a leader. Now it is time to solve this problem. However, whether it can really be solved is another matter. Since Shangguan dared to do this, she must be prepared. As expected, she heard Rong Xiu continue. Also, there is one more thing. The third princess said that the emperor had been in a coma for a long time, and they needed to find several special herbs and the blood of divine beasts to wake him up. For this reason, she planned to personally head to the Great Desolate Swamp. Chu Luiyue was really surprised this time. Great Desolate Swamp. That place was at the western border of the Tianling dynasty. It was extremely remote, and the environment was harsh. Why would Shangguan want to go there in person? Back then, Mu Qinghe had joined the Black Cavalry and fought for many years in the Great Desolate Swamp. In the end, she had quelled the rebellion with great difficulty, which was why she had her current status. It was easy to imagine the dangers involved. Chu Luiyue had been to the Great Desolate Swamp in his previous life. Although it wasn't as mysterious and dangerous as the southern border, the Great Desolate Swamp was still a dangerous place compared to other places. Mystic Forest, Mirror Lake, Red Moon Desert back then, even she had been in danger several times. In Shangguan's current situation, she still dared to take such a risk? Chu Luiyue thought for a moment. She brought the elders of the royal family with her? There's also 1,000 Black Cavalry. If the rumors aren't wrong, Mu Qinghe will be leading the team. Rong Xiu touched the teacup with a calm expression. In addition, she also plans to send 10 people from each of the 8 sects in the sect competition. She said, to provide opportunities for training. I heard that she will be selecting people from today onwards. We will set off 3 days later. Chu Luiyue almost laughed out loud. Provide opportunities for training? Shangguan could actually say such things. How dangerous was the Great Desolate Swamp? More or less, there was no return. It was understandable that she brought the elders of the royal family and the Black Cavalry, but she still wanted to select people from the 4 major sects. She obviously had other motives. This is the royal family's matter. Did she say that the 4 major sects agreed so easily? This wasn't what she said. It was Purple Shao Sword sect master, Song Wan, who suggested it. It seems that some outstanding descendants of aristocratic families can go together if they wanna. Now, the news is spread throughout the entire West Hill. How preposterous. Ridiculous. Chu Luiyue didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Why are they so passionate about the Great Desolate Swamp? Isn't that place very dangerous? It's dangerous, but there might be countless treasures hidden there. People die for wealth, and birds die for food. It has been like this since ancient times. Rong Xiu said lightly, as if he didn't care. Chu Luiyue was speechless for a moment. All along, the Great Desolate Swamp had always been mysterious and dangerous in the eyes of the world, but it was also full of temptation. Because thousands of years ago, a shocking battle had once erupted there. It was rumored that in that battle, countless strong people killed each other, and they all fell in the end. The various treasures and inheritances that they left behind had undoubtedly become things that everyone yearned for even in their dreams. Therefore, for many years, there had always been an endless stream of people entering the Great Desolate Swamp. Back then, it was also because someone found an incredible item in the Great Desolate Swamp and gathered a group of extremely vicious people who wanted to start anew in the Great Desolate Swamp. In the end, they were forcefully suppressed. That group of people who rebelled had all disappeared, but it was precisely because of them that countless people realized how powerful the countless treasures hidden in the Great Desolate Swamp were. Therefore, from then on, even more people went there. In addition, there was an even more important point: divine beasts. There hadn't been a divine beast in the Tianling dynasty for hundreds of years. Even the former Shangguan had only contracted a 9th-grade magical beast, not a divine beast. No one knew when it started, but there was suddenly a rumor that a divine beast appeared in the Great Desolate Swamp. In this world where the strong were respected, all these factors had a fatal attraction to all cultivators. Therefore, after Shangguan mentioned this matter, many people immediately expressed their desire to go with her. Chu Luo thought for a moment. That's true. Rong Xiu looked at her. Then, do you plan to go? Chu Luo was a disciple of the Chongxu Pavilion, so she naturally had a chance. Moreover, she had just won 3 matches, turned the tide, and preserved the Chongxu Pavilion's position as one of the 4 major sections. She would definitely be the focus of attention. Chu Luo thought for a moment. Go. Why not? It wasn't like she hadn't been there before. Moreover, she also wanted to see what tricks Shangguan had up her sleeves. Suddenly, she frowned slightly. But if I go, what about you? Rong Xiu smiled faintly. I'm leaving tomorrow, 1 step earlier than you. Chu Luo was a little surprised, and a sense of loss suddenly surged in her heart. So soon? I've been resting here for a long time, and it's time to go. Chu Luo realized that Rong Xiu had indeed stayed in West Hill for more than a month. It was just that she had been busy with many things, and the two of them didn't have much chance to be alone. Chu Luo fell silent for a moment. Rong Xiu glanced at Yan Qing indifferently. Yan Qing immediately understood what he meant. Master, I suddenly remembered that there are still some things I haven't done, so I'll take my leave first. Rong Xiu nodded slightly. Yan Qing slipped away. Rong Xiu looked at 36 respected Elderming again. However, 36 respected Elderming was looking at Chu Luo, and he asked with a worried and eager expression. That little Luo, the place you mentioned is so dangerous. Do you want me to go with you? Digression. At about 12:30 p.m., mobile phone users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 674. Rong Xiu. 36 respected Elderming, you seem to have said something wrong? This is your first time meeting you, Is it appropriate for you to speak like this? As if Rong Xiu's gaze was too cold and resentful, the slow-witted 36 respected Elderming finally realized something and quickly turned his head to look at him. Hey, look, Rong Xiu is also very worried. I feel more at ease accompanying you. Rong Xiu. He suddenly rejoiced that he didn't let 36 respected Elderming meet Chu Luo in the past month. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had a good time during this period of time. Chu Luo smiled helplessly. 36 respected Elderming, I'm afraid this won't work. Shangguan had caused quite a commotion this time, and it was obvious that she was very strict in selecting people. Each of the 8 sects would send out 10 people. Those who didn't know the inside story would probably think that this was an excellent opportunity and would fight until their heads bled. With such strict control over these sects, people like 36 respected Elderming would definitely not be allowed to go together. Hearing this, 36 respected Elderming's face was filled with disappointment. He originally wanted to follow and protect little Luo, but don't worry, I will be very careful and pay attention to safety. Chu Luo said again. Sigh, all right. 36 respected Elderming let out a long sigh and began to take things out from his universe ring. If that's the case, then I can't help you with anything else. I can only give you some things to protect yourself. Here, this and this. And this. Take them all. As he spoke, he handed over another pile of things. Chu Luyue, it was really hard to guess how many treasures there were in the big boss's universe ring. I mustn't disappoint 36 respected Elder Ming's kind intentions. Rong Xiao raised his finger and moved all those things to Chu Luyue's feet. Then, he took out another pile and similarly piled them in front of Chu Luyue. I'm giving these to you. Chu Luyue. Why did he inexplicably smell a faint murderous aura? Chu Luyue felt really embarrassed and tried to stop him again and again. Hence, he successfully kept all these things into his universe ring. The three of them were happy. Chu Luyue was busy receiving gifts, but he didn't know that Shilling City was already in an uproar because of these two matters. The third princess and young Master Zhong's wedding. To His Majesty, to His Majesty's, His Majesties, to the disciples of the major sects were all extremely excited. That was the great desolate swamp. Although there were countless treasures. If he could find some kind of treasure, or even obtain the inheritance of a certain expert, that would be a great opportunity. All the cultivators in the world wished to become stronger. Therefore, even if they knew that the great desolate swamp was dangerous, it still couldn't stop them from wanting to go. For this reason, the major sects had already begun to consider candidates.
Mountain.
I'm not going. Jian Fengqi crossed his legs and waved his bone fan. He looked lazy and indifferent. That's a barren land. Whoever wants to go can go. Jian Shai looked at him disapprovingly. What barren land? That's a place where divine beasts have appeared. Let's not talk about whether the rumor is true or not. Even if it's true, do you think I'll have a chance to get that divine beast? Jian Fengqi sneered. If only divine beasts were so easy to tame. Jian Shai also knew that what he said made sense, so he didn't argue with him. Even if you can't find a divine beast, it's good to go and experience it. You grew up in Shilling and almost never went outside. Now that this is a rare opportunity, you can go out and see. Moreover, the third princess is going to look for herbs for His Majesty. You're not interested in divine beasts, but there should be herbs, right? Jian Fengqi glanced at his father. Father, I'm fine in Shilling. Why do you insist on me going out? Even if I didn't experience those things, aren't I still fine now? I'm a celestial physician, and you're also a celestial physician. Why are you still forcing me to fight with a group of martial artists and Xian masters? Jian Shai really didn't know what to do with this son of his. He only cared about himself all day long and wanted the best for everything. He wasn't willing to suffer at all. Jian Fengqi glanced at him and continued. Besides, Mu Qinghe used to rise from that place. Is there anyone who knows Dahuang's swamp better than him? It's enough for him to go on this trip. There are so many other people going, but they're just joining in the fun. However, he didn't like it. Shang Guanwan was there, and he was really afraid that she would ruin his mood. Besides, Shang Guanwan's words were just used to scare people. Only she knew what she really wanted to do. He might as well stay in Shilling and do what he should do. Seeing that he really couldn't persuade him, Jian Shai could only give up. Master, can I go? Mu Hongyu suddenly asked. Jian Shai was stunned and immediately nodded. Of course. Although there were only 10 places, Mu Hongyu had the incorporeal body. In addition, she had improved rapidly during this period. Of course, she could go if she wanted to. Mu Hongyu's eyes lit up. That's great. Thank you, Master. That place sounds very interesting. And if I'm not wrong, Luyu will definitely go too. Jian Fengqi frowned slightly and was about to stop her, but he swallowed his words when he saw Mu Hongyu's excited expression. Jian Shai shook his head at Jian Fengqi. Since you don't want to go, then it's up to you. Many disciples on the mountain want to go. Jian Fengqi was unmoved. He stood up, stretched, and walked out leisurely. When he passed by Mu Hongyu, he knocked Mu Hongyu's head with his bone fan and whispered, "You really don't know the difference between life and death." Mu Hongyu blinked and wrinkled her nose. Who was reckless? Just as she was about to retort, Jian Fengqi had already walked away. Imperial Palace, Huayang Hall. Shang Wanwan sat there, thinking about something. Chan Yi was packing her things. They would set off for the Dahuang Swamp in 3 days. This time it would probably take more than a month. Therefore, she had to bring a lot of things. The Dahuang Swamp was a dangerous place. If it was in the past, Shang Wanwan would still have the courage to go. But now, her body, she felt more or less uneasy. Fortunately, she had brought a lot of people this time. Your Highness, Your Highness? Chan Yi called out to her twice before Shang Wanwan came back to her senses. What's wrong? Chan Yi looked at her expression and asked hesitantly. Is the third princess worried about something? With Vice Admiral Mu leading the team this time, there shouldn't be a problem. Shang Wanwan scoffed. He won't listen to me. Although she knew that Mu Qinghe was Jiang Yuqing's subordinate, perhaps because he had been by Shang Guanyu's side for so many years, she couldn't trust him. If it weren't for the fact that they were going to the Dahuang Swamp and Mu Qinghe was the most suitable, she wouldn't have brought him along. Your Highness, you're worrying too much. Isn't young Master Zhang accompanying us? If you're really worried, why don't you bring that thing along? Shang Wanwan turned around. What? Chan Yi bowed and whispered. Have you forgotten that that person left behind a set of armor? Digression. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 675. Are you talking about the pure gold armor? Shang Wanwan furrowed her eyebrows. That item is not bad, but it has always been in Zhaoyu Hall. Everyone in the Tianling dynasty knows that it belongs to Shang Guanyu. If I take it out, that person has already passed away. It's a waste for the holy item to be left in the pavilion. If it can be used by Your Highness and protect Your Highness, it will be the best use. Chan Yi didn't seem to mind. She advised, you are already above everyone, and you will be getting married in a few months' time. No one is more suitable than you to be the new owner of this pure gold armor. Shang Wanwan was moved by her words. The origin of this pure gold saint armor had quite a long history. Back then, when Shang Guanyu had just become of marriageable age, she had led the Black Cavalry to patrol the territory. Along the way, she had accidentally entered the ruins of an ancient battlefield and obtained the pure gold armor. She had only publicly worn it once, and that was during the final battle in Dahuang Swamp. It was rumored that she had worn the pure gold armor and fought against 3 rank 8 martial artists alone. She had even killed all of them in the end. From then on, the pure gold armor had become famous. Shang Guanyu was the heavenly princess and had seen many good items. However, this pure gold armor was definitely one of the top 3 yuan tools that she had. It was obvious how powerful it was. Shang Guanwan had naturally been moved by this item. She had even thought of taking the pure gold armor for herself after dealing with Shang Guanyu. However, her yuan meridian had been burned and hadn't recovered. Thus, she had thrown this matter to the back of her mind. Now that Chan Yi mentioned it, she suddenly recalled it. What you said makes sense. Shang Wanwan narrowed her eyes and thought about it. Let's go now. Zhaoyu Hall. This used to be the most honorable place in the entire palace, other than the Universal Palace where the current emperor lived. This was because this used to be the residence of the heavenly princess. The bustling of the past had all disappeared. The current Zhaoyu Hall had become very lonely and cold. Other than the palace guards who were sent to guard the palace, almost no one would come here. Because the empress concubine died from qi deviation during cultivation, it wasn't very pleasant to hear. In addition, the one in power now was the third princess, so people rarely talked about the past. In this palace, it was true that each new emperor brought in his own ministers. In the eyes of the world, the third princess and the empress concubine were extremely close and had a very good relationship. However, the palace servants who had been in the palace for a long time all had a keen mind. They more or less understood the subtleties involved. Therefore, when Shang Guanwan arrived, the palace servants of Zhaoyu Hall were very shocked. Long live the third princess! Shangguan waved her hand casually and stepped into the courtyard, heading straight for the sleeping quarters. I'm just looking around. Do whatever you need to do. After everyone agreed in unison, they waited for Shangguan to enter the bedchamber. Then, they exchanged glances and slowly dispersed. Ever since Her Highness the Empress concubine left, the third princess came a few times. She always came with red eyes and left with red eyes. He didn't come much this year. Today's visit was really inexplicable. But no matter what, they still had to serve her carefully. Shangguan walked into the bedchamber. This room clearly hadn't been visited by anyone for a long time. The air was filled with a faint smell of dust that had been sealed for a long time. When the sunlight shone in, one could see the dust dancing in the air. Shangguan frowned and used a handkerchief to cover her mouth and nose. She was angry and amused at the same time. Who would have thought that the once glorious Zhaoyu Hall would fall to such a state one day? If it was a normal day, she would definitely immediately go out and admonish her to show her deep sisterly love. But today, she really wasn't in the mood and couldn't be bothered to do it. She walked to the bedside and gently rubbed the edge of the bed. After touching a protrusion, she pressed with her finger, and the sandalwood cabinet diagonally opposite quietly moved aside. A secret compartment appeared in front of her. Shangguan walked over and knocked on it a few times.
Click.
The secret compartment opened. A pure golden armor was placed in the middle of it. Even in this dark space, this pure gold armor still emitted a faint glow that couldn't be ignored. From top to bottom, it emitted an indescribable noble and lofty aura. At a glance, one could almost feel the surging blood qi on the armor. This wasn't the first time Shangguan saw this pure gold armor. But every time she saw it, her heart would be shocked. It was a true sacred object passed down from the ancient times. It was an incomparable existence that could be called a divine artifact. Shangguan was excited and couldn't help but reach out her hand to touch it slowly. It was cold and hard to the touch, but it emitted a powerful pressure. If she really wore it, what would it look like? Shangguan took a deep breath and carefully took off the pure gold armor. She held it in her arms and felt it against her face for a while. This was a powerful aura. This armor recognized its owner. Unfortunately, her yuan meridian was damaged and she could only look at it. When her body recovers, all of these would be hers. Shangguan carefully put the pure gold armor into her universe ring. Then, she restored everything to its original state before leaving. Chang'e was waiting at the door. As Shangguan walked out, she said indifferently, "Long Tianyu hasn't been cleaned up." Eldest sister's palace hasn't been cleaned for a long time. The palace servants of Zhaoyu Hall have neglected their duties and have all been chased out of the palace. Chang'e bowed. Yes. Jiang residence. Eldest young master, you can't go with the third princess this time. If this continues, I'm afraid your body will. Feng Shangyuan came to the study again and tried his best to dissuade him. Jiang Yuqing sat in the chair expressionlessly. You don't have to say this anymore. I must go this time. He wasn't going because of anything else but because he was worried about Shangguan. Shangguan wanted to recover her yuan meridian as soon as possible, and he agreed. However, he didn't expect her to do this the moment she made a move. Not only did she bring the royal family's elders and 1,000 black cavalry, but the other sects also sent 10 disciples each. What was going on? Others didn't know, but he knew best. Shangguan was being too hasty. Feng Shangyuan frowned. But if you and the third princess go to Dahuang Swamp, what will happen to West Hill? Leave it to the subordinates to deal with. Now that most of the problems have been resolved, nothing will happen in a short month. Jiang Yuqing didn't think much of it. For the past 2 years, he had been upholding the principle of those who followed him would prosper and those who opposed him would die. He killed those who should be killed and captured those who should be captured. He had already dealt with those who posed a threat to him. He wasn't worried about what the remaining shrimp soldiers and crab generals would do. But there's still His Majesty. It's precisely because I want to find out the problem that I want to leave West Hill. Jiang Yuqing said meaningfully. Feng Shangyuan didn't say anything else. Do. Eldest young master, Vice Admiral Mu requests an audience. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 676. Jiang Yuqing glanced at Feng Shan and the latter immediately took his leave. Then Mu Qinghe walked in. Jiang Yuqing leaned back in his chair. Tell me, what's the matter? Mu Qinghe cupped his fists. Young master, I've been secretly investigating the 100 Herbs building recently, but they're very guarded, so it's difficult to find anything. However, I accidentally learned that Yuling is in charge of the 100 Herbs building on the surface, but in fact, there's a first master behind him. That's the real master of the 100 Herbs building. First master? Jiang Yuqing frowned. Who is this person? He only knew that there must be someone behind the 100 Herbs building, but he didn't know who it was. Moreover, because the 100 Herbs building had been doing business quietly in the past and did not involve his interests, he did not seriously send people to investigate.
Mu Qinghe shook his head.
This person is very mysterious, and there's no clue. But I heard that this first master has a wife, and he loves her very much. But there's nothing else. First master, wife, these were all hearsay. When he really wanted to investigate, Mu Qinghe found that the other party was more powerful than he had imagined, and everything was done flawlessly. This made him even more helpless. If Chu Luyue really has a backer in the 100 Herbs building, it's very likely to be this person. Otherwise, there's really no way to explain what happened recently. Chu Luyue comes from an ordinary family and has never even been to West Hill. How could she know such a person? Jiang Yuqing was a little skeptical. Mu Qinghe lowered his head slightly. It said that the last time Chu Luyue went to the 100 Herbs building, Yuling was very polite to her and even entertained her personally. There are probably less than 5 people in West Hill who have such treatment. Jiang Yuqing's expression changed slightly. In that case, it's possible. Can't you find out anything about the so-called first master? For example, is he from West Hill? Or perhaps it's age. Mu Qinghe shook her head, then said with some hesitation, That's right. Eldest young master, we've been secretly investigating them, but we've already been discovered. And they even gave me a warning. Jiang Yuqing's eyes suddenly turned sharp.
What?
Mu Qinghe opened her palm. There was a neat bloody wound on it, as if it was going to be cut in half from the middle. The other party's meaning was very clear. Don't stretch your hands too far. They fought with you? Jiang Yuqing asked coldly. It's a masked man. His strength is not inferior to mine. In fact, what Mu Qinghe wanted to say was that the other party's strength was most likely higher than his. Otherwise, it would not have been so easy to leave such a wound on his palm. Jiang Yuqing was silent for a long time, as if he was holding a breath in his chest. In these 2 years, he had never seen such an arrogant person. However, he didn't even know who this person was. Whether it was Jiang Yuji or Mu Qinghe, the other party had made it clear that they were unyielding. According to Jiang Yuqing's personality, he would never allow others to bully him. Furthermore, this was West Hill. This was his territory. However, at this time, it was not appropriate to cause more trouble. He stared at the wound on Mu Qinghe's palm, rubbed his brows, and let out a long breath. Forget it, this matter ends here. We'll be going to Dahuang Swamp in a few days. Let's settle these things first. Mu Qinghe had already expected this result and nodded without surprise. Yes. Jiang Yuqing had been troubled by a bunch of trivial matters recently. He couldn't even take care of himself, so how could he care about these things? He could only wait until he returned. If there's nothing else, eldest young master, then I'll take my leave first. Jiang Yuqing waved his hand. Mu Qinghe retreated. However, she had just taken 2 steps when she was stopped by Jiang Yuqing. By the way, that day were you the one who called the carriage for Rongxiu? Mu Qinghe was a little surprised that Jiang Yuqing actually knew about Rongxiu, but she still nodded. Yes. Jiang Yuqing's expression was a little cold, as if he was thinking about something. After a moment, he asked again. That Rongxiu, what kind of person is he? Mu Qinghe was even more shocked. Why was Jiang Yuqing suddenly curious about Rongxiao? There were so many things to deal with right now, but he was actually wasting time and energy on such an unrelated person. Mu Qinghe suppressed the doubts in her heart and briefly told him about Rongxiao's situation. He didn't know much about Rongxiao, so he finished with a few words. As Jiang Yuqing spoke, he looked at Jiang Yuqing's expression. That's about it. Does eldest young master suspect that there's something wrong with him? Jiang Yuqing's lips moved, but in the end, he didn't say anything. He just shook his head and let Mu Qinghe leave. After Mu Qinghe left and closed the door, Jiang Yuqing closed his eyes in annoyance. How could he think about these things at this time? On the one hand, the person who wanted to assassinate him hadn't been found yet. On the other hand, who was the first master behind Hunderherb's building? He didn't know whether it would be good or bad for him. Most importantly, he was about to go to Dahuang Swamp. He had to adjust his physical condition as soon as possible and prevent anything from happening to Shangguanwan. He really shouldn't spend time and energy asking these questions. But for some reason, the scene of that day kept appearing in his mind from time to time. The heavy snow was swirling, and the world was crystal white. In the warm and spacious horse carriage, a man and woman were leaning against each other. She leaned tightly against that man's embrace, and her hair was messy. Her cheeks were flushed, and there seemed to be ripples in her eyes, which were mesmerizing. She was still wrapped in his black cloak. She was like a treasure being held in his hands. Her smile was so pure and clean, and there was a hint of unconcealable sweetness amidst her shyness. Jiang Yuqing closed his eyes and looked tired. However, in his mind, another scene flashed past. It was a scorching summer day. Thousand View Garden, by the lake outside the piano room. A woman also revealed such a smile. It was bright and dazzling, shy and honest. She said to him, "Yuqing, I have someone I like. Let's forget about the marriage agreement." Digression. Tomorrow at 12 a.m. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from AI Network. Chapter 677. The next morning, Rongxiao left with Yan Qing, UMO, 36 respected Elder Ming, and the others. Although Chu Luyue was reluctant to part with them, he had no choice but to do so. He secretly hoped that he could settle the matters here as soon as possible. The snow on the road had basically been cleared. After sending them off, Chu Luyue returned to the Chongshu Pavilion. Yuqi Song and Elder Xia Yi were discussing the matter of sending people to Dahuang Swamp. Unlike the other sects, the people of Chongshu Pavilion, from top to bottom, were not interested in this matter. On the one hand, the Chongshu Pavilion had experienced a series of setbacks in the past 2 years, and these people had barely survived. They would rather cultivate in a down-to-earth manner than risk their lives for an uncertain opportunity. On the other hand, there were less than 100 people left in the entire Chongshu Pavilion. It was really not a wise choice to send so many people to take the risk. What if something happened again? Whether it was Yuqi Song, Elder Xia Yi, or the disciples in the sect, they were all very conservative about this trip. Moreover, they were going with the third princess and the other sections. No one knew what would happen during this trip. This trip is dangerous, and it might not be beneficial for us. I think we shouldn't go, right? Elder Xia Yi asked tentatively. Anyway, this isn't a mandatory requirement. The other sects might be overjoyed that we have 10 vacancies. Yuqi Song stroked his beard. Although you're right, we'll inevitably be criticized if the other sects go except for the Chongshu Pavilion. We've just secured our position as one of the 4 major sections. It's really inappropriate if we don't go this time. On the surface, this matter seemed to be the result of a joint discussion between the royal family and the various sections. But in fact, without the third princess's permission, Song Wan would never take the initiative to suggest this. In other words, they had to go this time. Otherwise, they would very likely offend the third princess. Elder Xia Yi frowned with a grave expression. Why don't we choose a compromise? Let's just pick a few people to go. Now that there are few people in our Chongshu Pavilion, it should be reasonable for a few fewer people to go. Yuqi Song nodded. It's not impossible. However, it's a little troublesome as to who to send. Among the disciples of the Chongshu Pavilion, not many would be willing to go. He also found it difficult to choose. Master, let me go. A clear voice came from outside the door. The two of them raised their heads at the same time and saw Chu Luiyue, dressed in red, walking in through the snow outside the door. Luiyue, you're back? Yuchi Song was the first to speak. He looked at Chu Luiyue up and down, and a hint of shock flashed in his eyes. You broke through to a rank 5 warrior? He had only left for 2 days. How did this girl break through again? Chu Luiyue blinked. I learned a lot at the Great Sect meeting and successfully broke through. Yuchi Song and Elder Xiaoyi were speechless for a long time. Such talent, such speed of breakthrough. What else could they say? After a while, Yuchi Song cleared his throat and asked, Did the third princess make things difficult for you? Chu Luiyue smiled and shook her head.
No.
She didn't. The third princess asked me to go over and chat for a while. I was supposed to come back yesterday, but the snow was too heavy, so I stayed in the house. Yuchi Song heaved a sigh of relief after making sure that she was safe and sound. He didn't have a good impression of Shangguan. He always felt that she was narrow-minded and narrow-minded. Not only did she take over the power of Shangguan, but she was also engaged to Jiang Yuqing and had even set the date of the wedding. This made him even more disgusted. If Shangguan and Shangguan were really close, why would she be with her ex-fiancé? Yuchi Song didn't say anything and rarely got involved in the affairs of the royal family in the past 2 years. However, he still held a grudge against Shangguan and Jiang Yuqing. That's good. Yuchi Song nodded and asked again. You said that you want to go to Dahuang Swamp? Chu Luiyue nodded seriously. Yes. Have you thought it through? Although there may be countless treasures hidden there, it is also extremely dangerous. It was really hard to predict what would happen during this trip. Luiyue, your talent is top-notch and you have been improving rapidly. You don't have to go at all. Have you thought it through? Yuchi Song had seen how Chu Luiyue dealt with the messed yuan gravel, so he knew that she had an unusual trump card. In his opinion, no matter where Chu Luiyue cultivated, she would be able to break through smoothly and become a top-notch expert. It was really unnecessary to go to Dahuang Swamp. Chu Luiyue smiled. I've made up my mind. There's no need to persuade me, Master. The Chongshu Pavilion can't be left unattended. I'm the most suitable person to go. She was Yuchi Song's disciple and the champion of the Wanzheng competition. She was powerful enough. If the Chongshu Pavilion only sent a few people, she was undoubtedly the most suitable person. Also, I have the ability to protect myself. I'll be careful. You don't have to worry, Master. Yuchi Song and Elder Xiaoyi exchanged a look. Chu Luiyue did seem to want to go. Moreover, she had a good reason. Yuchi Song hesitated for a long time before he finally agreed.
All right.
Since you want to go, I won't stop you. Just remember one thing. Safety first. If you encounter any danger, don't try to be brave. If necessary, remember to call for help. He was talking about the whistle. Chu Luiyue felt a warmth in her heart. I understand.
Don't worry, Master.
I'll go too. As soon as Chu Luiyue finished speaking, a familiar voice came from outside the door. She looked back. Chang Wanzhou was standing outside the door. The boy's beautiful and delicate face was expressionless. His soft, short blonde hair hung down, with a few strands covering his eyes. However, the determination and stubbornness in his eyes were incomparably clear. Chu Luiyue smiled. She had already guessed it, so she wasn't surprised. She turned to look at Yuchi Song and Elder Xiaoyi. Little Zhou is not weak. It's not a bad idea for him to go with me. What do you think? Elder Xiaoyi laughed. Since you're going, the boy will naturally go with you. Even if we don't agree, he'll definitely sneak in. In that case, can we still say no? Chang Wanzhou was practically Chu Luiyue's pendant. He would go wherever she went. Moreover, he was unsociable and unruly, but he listened to every word Chu Luiyue said. It was actually not a bad idea for him to go with Chu Luiyue. After all, he was also very strong. Yuchi Song chuckled helplessly. Since that's the case, Then both of you can go. Pavilion Master, Master, can I go with you? Another little head poked out from behind Chong Wanzhou. A round little face appeared in front of them. It was none other than Yi Ranran. Elder Shai was a little surprised. Ranran, why do you want to go with us? Yi Ranran was still young. In his opinion, he was still a child. She had always been obedient. He didn't expect her to want to go to such a dangerous place like Dahuang Swamp. Yi Ranran said somewhat embarrassedly, I heard that there are many precious medicinal herbs in Dahuang Swamp. I want to go and have a look. She really wanted to go there. Disregarding everything else, Yi Ranran had always been extremely passionate and persistent when it came to alchemy. It was understandable that she was tempted by Dahuang Swamp, but that place was really dangerous. Elder Shai frowned and didn't say anything for a long time. Yi Ranran looked eagerly at Chu Luyue. The corners of Chu Luyue's mouth lifted slightly. She looked at Yuchi Song and Elder Shai. Let her go. Mobile users, please browse the Love Network for a better reading experience. Chapter 678. Ranran is very talented in alchemy, and she'll definitely benefit a lot from this trip. With me and Xiaozhou here, we will definitely ensure her safety, Chu Luyue said seriously. Yi Ranran quickly raised his hand. Pavilion Master, I'll cultivate hard and be careful. I won't be a burden to Lu Yu and Wanzhou. She wanted to go to Dahuang Swamp, but she wouldn't let herself be a burden to everyone. In that case, she might as well not go. Seeing that the two elders were still hesitating, Chu Luyue added, with Ranran around, the three of us can take care of each other. Yuchi Song looked at Elder Shai. She's your disciple. You decide. Elder Shai pondered for a long time before he finally agreed.
All right.
But Ranran, you have to do what you said just now. Yi Ranran's combat strength was indeed not as good as Chu Luyue and Chong Wanzhou's. Her only advantage was probably her talent as a celestial physician. It would be good if she could really gain some experience on this trip. He just hoped that she wouldn't cause trouble to Chu Luyue and Chong Wanzhou. Yi Ranran's face was filled with joy. Thank you, Master. Thank you, Pavilion Master. Elder Shai laughed. You should be thanking Lu Yu. We don't have much time left. You'd better prepare yourselves in the next 2 days. They nodded in agreement. Chu Luyue rose to his feet and left with Chong Wanzhou and Yi Ranran to discuss the departure. After they left, Elder Shai looked at Yuchi Song with a much more serious expression. Pavilion Master, have you heard about what happened in the Jiang Mansion in Shilling City in the past 2 days?
Yuchi Song asked.
You mean the assassination attempt on Jiang Yuqing? Elder Shai nodded, then shook his head. Jiang Yuqing has offended a lot of people. It's normal for someone to attack him. But it was rumored that Jiang Yuqing had gathered his former subordinates, and that person had mixed in and almost succeeded. Pavilion Master, do you know that the people he called to the Jiang Mansion that day were actually the people who followed him to the southern border? Yuchi Song nodded. I know. Speaking of which, he did it for me to see. To be precise, it's for the Chongshu Pavilion. Elder Xiai's eyes widened. You mean, I went to look for him earlier and told him about the Chaos Yuan gravel. He tried his best to clear his name and said that he would help investigate the matter. For this reason, he gathered all those people together. He seems to have kept a low profile, but in fact, if someone investigated, they would have found out. So that's how it is. In this way, no one will be alarmed, and he will show that he wants to help you find out the truth. This Jiang Yuqing is really thoughtful. He's always been like this. He's never been at a disadvantage. Yuchi Song's tone was indifferent, but there was a hint of sarcasm in his eyes. However, the fact that someone tried to assassinate him should be an accident. He probably didn't expect that he would be ambushed in his own home. Elder Shai asked curiously, Didn't you say that the assassin failed to hurt him? Yuchi Song sneered. If that person didn't succeed, would Jiang Yuqing be so exasperated that he sent people to search Shilling City overnight? In the past 2 days, he had almost turned the entire city upside down. If he hadn't suffered a loss, he wouldn't have done this at this time. After all, he had just set the date of his wedding with the third princess. It was really inappropriate for him to do this. You're right. Elder Xiaoyi chuckled. I just don't know who did it. Someone who could take advantage of Jiang Yuqing's subordinates must not be an ordinary person. I'm really curious about Jiang Yuqing's injuries. Yu Qisong's eyes flickered with a hint of coldness. He brought this upon himself. Chu Luiyue returned to her room and cultivated in peace. After breaking through to the 5th stage, she clearly felt that her 5 senses were much more sensitive than before. After unlocking the 5 treasures, her cultivation speed was also much faster than before. This made Chu Luiyue feel much more at ease. After all, one's strength was what gave them confidence. After circulating the force in her body for 1 cycle, Chu Luiyue's entire person became energized. She was even looking forward to the trip to Dahuang Swamp. At this thought, she carefully checked the things that 36 respected Elder Ming and Rong Xiao had given her. With just a glance, he really found quite a few good things. In any case, they were more than enough to save her life if she encountered any danger. Chu Luiyue took out a bronze disc. This thing seems to be able to teleport? Chu Luiyue didn't think much of it at the time, but now that she took it out, she remembered that it was actually very valuable. More importantly, it was priceless. Even if you had the money, you might not be able to buy it. According to its level, the distance it could teleport was also different. Chu Luiyue looked at the bronze disc in her hand. It was only the size of a palm and was heavy when she picked it up.
There were already rust spots on it.
It was obvious that it had not been used for a long time. I wonder how far this thing can teleport. Chu Luiyue was curious. She wiped off the dust on it and injected a trace of origin power. The bronze disc did not move at all. Chu Luiyue was a little puzzled. As long as it was an origin tool, there would be some movement when origin power was injected. However, this thing did not even have the slightest movement. She poured in even more origin power. This time, she used 50% of her strength. The bronze disc still did not change at all. Chu Luiyue was originally just curious, but now her fighting spirit was stimulated. She didn't believe that she couldn't even open a bronze disc like this. Thus, she took a deep breath and injected 100% of her origin power into it.
Crack.
A crisp shattering sound was suddenly heard. Chu Luiyue was stunned. She wouldn't break it, would she? This was given to me by someone. If I broke it just like that. Chu Luiyue quickly stopped and put the thing in front of her eyes to take a closer look. There was an extremely small crack in the middle of the bronze disc. It's really broken. Chu Luiyue felt a headache coming on. Just as she was thinking about how to repair this thing, a bright stream of light suddenly flashed through the gap. It disappeared in an instant. If Chu Luiyue was not staring at it closely, she would not have noticed it. That's... Chu Luiyue frowned and stared at the crack for a while. This black seems a little off. Chu Luiyue's mind raced. In the end, she chose to continue injecting her origin power into it.
Crack.
The crack became even bigger. The light inside also flashed more frequently. Chu Luiyue continued to inject her origin power into it. After an unknown period of time, a piece of bronze suddenly shattered and fell. Something inside suddenly protruded. Chu Luiyue took a closer look and was stunned. This is actually a petal? Of course, this petal was not real. It was carved out of a transparent crystal. Although it was transparent, at first glance, it was overflowing with light and color. It was extremely magnificent. The entire bronze disc was filled with cracks. It was as if a layer of bronze skin was protruding. Chu Luiyue injected another strand of origin power.
Bang.
Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 679. The layer of bronze on top fell off in an instant. A few petals rose up one after another. Chu Luiyue widened her eyes slightly and looked at a blooming transparent crystal peach blossom. The petals were oval with needles on the edge and a few stamens in the middle. It was indeed a peach blossom. After shaking off all the bronze on the surface, all that was left was a crystal peach blossom that was cold to the touch, clear and beautiful. Chu Liyue did not know whether to laugh or cry. So, this is what this seemingly rough bronze disc looks like inside? I wonder how 36 respected eldermen kept it. It's actually placed like this? Chu Liyue played with the thing in her hand. It could teleport, but how is this thing used? Suddenly, the petals closed slightly. A subtle touch was felt. In the next moment, Chu Liyue seemed to have injected a stream of force into it subconsciously. The stamen swayed gently and cut her slender fingers. The dark red blood instantly seeped into the transparent crystal and quickly dyed it pink. Chu Liyue did the whole process smoothly. Seeing this scene, she did not have any fear in her heart. She just continued to stare at it. Then, a stream of light flashed, and the crystal peach blossom disappeared instantly. Chu Liyue felt a pain in her wrist. She looked down and saw a pink peach blossom mark on the inner side of her left wrist. The imprint was only the size of a fingernail, and it was a light pink color. It was vivid and lifelike on the side of her fair and delicate wrist. It recognized me as its master? Chu Liyue felt a little strange. She did not know what this thing was, but it had inexplicably turned into a peach blossom mark on her wrist. With a thought, she let the force in her body surge toward the peach blossom mark. A white light flashed. A sense of emptiness came. Chu Liyue's figure disappeared on the spot. Darkness flashed in front of her eyes, and her body fell down, as if it was being dragged by something. However, this feeling only lasted for a short while. Soon, Chu Liyue's feet seemed to have stepped on solid ground. The darkness before his eyes gradually dissipated. Chu Liyue closed his eyes and looked at the scene in front of him. This look almost made her heart jump out of her chest. Because this was her zither room. She loved this place very much in her previous life. Everything inside was arranged according to her preferences. With just one look, she could confirm that this was indeed her zither room. Bookshelf, desk, guqin. Chu Liyue was shaken to the core when he came to this place and saw everything that he was so familiar with. The blood in his body seemed to have stopped flowing at this moment. In her mind, a rare blank appeared. For a moment, she did not know what to do. After a while, she took a deep breath and gradually calmed down the emotions in her heart. At the same time, a question popped up in his mind. The peach blossom crystal stone could indeed teleport, but how did it bring her here? She had thought of many places before, but she never would have thought that it would be here. Was it because she subconsciously wanted to come here? It's good that you're here. The voice of the legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly rang out. The purple gold Bodhi leaf is right here. Chu Liyue was taken aback. Really? Are you sure? She knew the entire space of this zither room very well. She didn't remember putting the purple gold Bodhi leaf here. But the legendary three-eyed eagle was very sure. Yes. And fortunately, because you have a contract with me, your body is tainted with the aura of the legendary three-eyed eagle clan. The purple gold Bodhi leaf is not alert at this time, so it's a good time to take it away. Chu Liyue looked around. Then, where is that thing? Since she was already here, of course, she had to seize the opportunity. If she followed the normal procedure, she didn't know when she would be able to enter this place. Now that she was here, Chu Liyue couldn't care less about her sadness. Her mind was full of thoughts of finding the purple gold Bodhi leaf. It's in that guqin. The legendary three-eyed eagle quickly said. Chu Liyue was stunned. What? Really? She would never have thought that the legendary purple gold Bodhi leaf was hidden in her phoenix-tailed guqin? You mean that thing is hidden under the guqin, right? Chu Liyue said uncertainly, her voice inexplicably weak. No, it's in that guqin. The corners of Chu Liyue's eyes twitched fiercely. Do I have to split this guqin open and take the purple gold Bodhi leaf? One must know that this was an extremely precious guqin that she had always cherished. She really couldn't bear to destroy it now. Moreover, although this guqin looked delicate, it was actually made of extremely hard wood. With her current strength, it would take her a lot of effort to split it open. Most importantly, Jiang Yuqing had guarded this place very tightly. If she really caused a commotion, it would probably cause a lot of trouble. The legendary three-eyed eagle said, "There's no need for that. The purple gold Bodhi leaf is sentient. It must have chosen to stay here because it likes it. We just have to lure it out." Chu Luiyue inwardly heaved a sigh of relief. Then, how do we lure it out? The purple gold Bodhi is the divine tree of the legendary three-eyed eagle clan. There is an indescribable attraction between our clan and it. Therefore, I can do it myself. That's even better. Chu Luiyue nodded in agreement while thinking to herself that this purple gold Bodhi was indeed a divine tree. Even a single leaf was so difficult to deal with. A black phantom slowly appeared in front of Chu Luiyue. In order not to attract attention, it was much smaller than usual, about the size of an ordinary eagle. When it spread its wings, it was just as long as the guqin. The legendary three-eyed eagle hovered in the air, looking down at the guqin from above. A heavy and majestic aura gradually emanated from its body, enveloping the guqin. Something seemed to flash on the body of the guqin, but Chu Luiyue didn't see it clearly. Then, the third eye of the legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly opened. At the same time, a strange fluctuation suddenly appeared on the body of the guqin. It was as if something was running across it. Chu Luiyue's mind stirred, and he looked carefully. He saw that the fluctuation was rolling back and forth, like a small wave. Something seemed to want to run out, but because the entire guqin had been sealed by the legendary three-eyed eagle's aura, it could only run back and forth like this. Gradually, the fluctuation became smaller. That thing finally revealed its true appearance. A purple gold leaf. It floated back and forth on the guqin, shining all over. Chu Luiyue exclaimed in his heart, "So this is the legendary purple gold Bodhi leaf." It looked like a leaf, but in fact, it was more like an intelligent spirit. The third eye of the legendary three-eyed eagle stared at the purple gold Bodhi leaf and was about to put it away. A series of footsteps suddenly came from outside the door. "Greetings, eldest young master." Chu Luiyue was shocked. Why did Jiang Yuqing suddenly come? Digression 6:00. Tomorrow, we will resume 5 chapters together. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 680. Jiang Yuqing's voice sounded faintly. "I'm just here to take a look as usual. All of you can leave." "Yes." From the sound of it, it seemed that the guard in charge of guarding had left. Jiang Yuqing took out the key and opened the door. Creak. Jiang Yuqing walked into the room and turned around to close the door. The zither room was as quiet as ever. He looked around. Everything was still the same as before. It was as if nothing had happened. Jiang Yuqing's gaze finally fell on the zither. The broken string had not been repaired yet. Scene after scene replayed in his mind, as if it had happened yesterday. It was incomparably vivid. Jiang Yuqing's expression gradually turned cold. He retracted his gaze, walked to the table at the side, and sat down. Then, he closed his eyes and let out a long breath. He didn't sleep well last night and had nightmares. It was different from the pain of being burned in a sea of fire. This time, the weather in the dream was good, and a gentle breeze blew. It was originally very good, except for the words that person said. She said that she had someone she liked. In the dream, Jiang Yuqing heard himself asking over and over again who that person was. He also heard himself repeating that this engagement could not be called off. Actually, at that time, he and Sheng Wenyu hadn't been engaged yet. Both sides only had this intention, but nothing had been done yet. Sooner or later, the princess would ascend the throne, and sooner or later, she would need an engagement. In the entire Tianling dynasty, countless young talents admired her. But in the end, she chose him. Perhaps it was because of his father's identity, or perhaps it was because he was outstanding in all aspects. The world said that he and the princess were in love with each other, but he knew that wasn't the case. That person born to be noble, perfect and flawless. Except she didn't love him. It seemed that the princess treated him very well, but in reality, she treated everyone very well. Therefore, in Jiang Yuqing's opinion, there was nothing special about it. This even made him feel a little disgusted. But no matter what he did, there seemed to be an invisible barrier around her. It could not be seen or touched, but it truly existed. He thought that no one would be able to get close to her or touch her, so he comforted himself that if he were to marry her, he would be closer to her than others. This wasn't bad either. It was not until that day that he realized he was wrong. In this world, there was someone who could easily enter her heart, and that person wasn't him. In the dream, he was constantly suspicious and questioning, and his attitude was intense. But in reality, that was not what he had done on that day. He was only surprised for a moment before he calmly asked who that person was. However, even now, he still had no idea who that person was. At the end of the day, he only smiled and said, "All right." However, in the end, they still entered into a marriage contract. Jiang Yuqing rubbed his eyebrows and glanced at the guqin. Suddenly, his eyes narrowed. Soon after, he quickly got up and walked to the side of the zither. At first glance, the zither didn't seem to have changed. But Jiang Yuqing stared intently at a certain spot on the zither. When did a purple gold color appear here? He would come to take a look at this zither almost every once in a while. Almost no one was more familiar with it than him. He remembered clearly that such a mark had never appeared on it before. In fact, it wasn't there the last time he came. He stretched out his hand and reached for the zither. Suddenly, a cold wind came from behind. Alarm bells rang in his heart, and he immediately turned around. A huge black phantom pounced over. It directly knocked him to the side. Before he could see the other party's appearance clearly, he was already thrown to the ground. At the same time, a black figure suddenly appeared behind the cabinet on the other side. Jiang Yuqing's eyes suddenly widened. He actually didn't notice that there was someone in this room just now. He saw that black figure directly hugging the zither in his arms. Jiang Yuqing said angrily, "How dare you?" He held his breath, flipped over, and pulled out his saber. Then he slashed straight at that person. The saber slashed down. That person's figure actually disappeared on the spot in an instant. Jiang Yuqing's saber missed. He was shocked and subconsciously looked back. However, he only saw a huge wing sweep past his eyes. Then it also disappeared in an instant. Everything happened in an instant. By the time Jiang Yuqing reacted, there was no one else in the room other than him. The blood in his chest was surging. When the huge black figure pounced on him just now, it gave him a heavy blow. But how could he care about that at this moment? The zither had been stolen, right in front of his eyes. Jiang Yuqing couldn't believe it.
Guards! Guards!
He shouted angrily. The guards outside heard the sound and hurriedly rushed over. "Eldest young master, what's wrong? What's wrong? Tell me what's wrong." Jiang Yuqing swallowed the blood in his mouth. Because of his anger, his face was flushed red, and his veins were bulging. His facial features looked a little ferocious. "I told you to guard the zither room well. What did you do? How could you let someone sneak in without a sound? What's the use of having you?" When the guards saw this, they were all shocked and immediately knelt down. "Eldest young master, we've been guarding here all this time. We've never let anyone in." Jiang Yuqing recalled the scene of that person disappearing just now. It didn't seem to cause any fluctuations in the void. Instead, it disappeared in an instant. This kind of situation, it didn't seem to be an ordinary method. "Are you sure that you've been guarding outside the door all this time? No one came in and you didn't notice any movements?" Jiang Yuqing asked sternly. The guards trembled with fear. What this subordinate said is true. Looking at the shocked and terrified expressions on the guards' faces, Jiang Yuqing also believed them a little. But in this way, it would undoubtedly be more difficult to find out who that person was. And those huge black wings, he didn't seem to have seen such a magical beast before. "You guys go down first. Don't say a word about what happened today," Jiang Yuqing said with an ugly expression. The guards looked at each other. This eldest young master was so angry. Was he going to let them go just like that? Jiang Yuqing glanced at them. What don't you understand? This subordinate will remember. After saying that, the guards hurriedly left. After they left, Jiang Yuqing looked at the place where the zither was placed. There was nothing on it. Everyone knew that the zither room in Thousand View Garden was one of the Empress concubine's favorite places when she was alive. If the news of the zither being stolen spread, someone would definitely use this matter to make a fuss. At that time, he, who had been in charge of guarding the zither room, would definitely become the target of public criticism. Therefore, he had to investigate this matter himself. Thinking of this, he glanced in the direction where the guards left, and a hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 681. When Chu Luiyue opened her eyes again, she had already returned to her room in the Chongshu Pavilion. After confirming that she had returned safely, Chu Luiyue let out a long sigh of relief. That was close. She was almost discovered by Jiang Yuqing just now. If she was a step later, who would have thought that Jiang Yuqing would suddenly go to the zither room at this time? She took off her black robe and asked the legendary three-eyed eagle, "What's the matter? He didn't see you just now, did he?"
No.
The voice of the legendary three-eyed eagle was as calm and indifferent as ever, with a trace of contempt. He's just strong in appearance. Jiang Yuqing's reaction was simply terrible compared to a normal warrior of the same level. There must be something wrong with his body. Although the legendary three-eyed eagle didn't have a physical body now, it was still a divine beast after all. Moreover, after contracting with Chu Luiyue, its strength had been recovering. Although it was slow, its aura was indeed strengthening. It wouldn't be a problem to deal with Jiang Yuqing. Chu Luiyue was relieved when she heard this. After listening to the analysis of the legendary three-eyed eagle, she couldn't help but sneer. I've also sensed it. His strength is indeed much weaker than before. It seems that the matter of the Chaos Yuan gravel was indeed done by him. Although I don't know what method he used to make it seem that his realm hasn't changed at all, his strength has clearly regressed. In addition to the bloody hole that she had sent out earlier, the current Jiang Yuqing's body was probably in a mess. However, this thing is really useful. After such a long journey back and forth, the force in my body only consumed a little. As Chu Luiyue spoke, she looked at the peach blossom mark on the inner side of her left wrist. The peach blossoms were shining and blooming gently. Although she didn't know how this thing suddenly brought her to the zither room, being able to return safely and smoothly was enough to prove its ability. This thing was indeed much more useful than she had expected. The next time I see 36th Elder Ming, I have to thank him properly. After saying that, Chu Luiyue once again confirmed that the doors and windows were locked and that no one would disturb her. Only then did she take out the zither from her universe ring and carefully placed it in front of her. She was about to subdue the purple gold Bodhi leaf just now, but Jiang Yuqing came and had to stop. Looking at the zither, Chu Luiyue's feelings were complicated. She really didn't expect that she would bring it back so inexplicably. Jiang Yuqing didn't dare to make this matter public, so she wasn't worried that he would investigate it openly. After thinking for a while, Chu Luiyue collected her thoughts and prepared to find the purplish gold Buddha leaf again. He looked up, down, left, and right and finally saw a purple gold color in the corner. It was as if someone had used a brush to lightly draw a line on it, and it was brilliant. That wisp of purple gold light swayed slightly, as if it was restless, and wanted to escape. However, it was because she was Jiang. She had escaped. Yes, this was a seal that the legendary three-eyed eagle had hurriedly placed on him. Chu Luiyue focused her eyes. Let's begin.
Crash.
The legendary three-eyed eagle appeared again. The huge black figure was suspended in midair. A powerful pressure filled the entire room. The third eye of the legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly opened. The layer of black on the zither quickly dissipated. A purple gold leaf suddenly leaped out from within. A red light shot out of the legendary three-eyed eagle's eye.
Bang.
The purple gold leaf was instantly wrapped up. It couldn't move. At a glance, the outer layer was oval in color. It was clear and translucent, and it looked like a piece of amber. Chu Lua reached out and took the item. It was slightly warm to the touch and emitted a faint leaf fragrance. Holding it in her hand, she could clearly feel the aura and power that was full of vitality. The force in Chu Lua's body seemed to be attracted by this power and gradually increased its flow speed. This purple gold Bodhi leaf is so powerful. Chu Lua was shocked, and her eyes widened slightly. Just this purple gold Bodhi leaf alone contained more energy than almost all the medicinal herbs she had ever seen. This is the leaf of a divine tree. Normal herbs can't be compared to it. There was a hint of pride in the legendary three-eyed eagle's voice. To be worshipped as a divine tree by the legendary three-eyed eagle clan, it was naturally extraordinary. Chu Lua looked at the small ball in her hand. So, it's temporarily locked up? That's right. When I find the rest of the items, I can rebuild my body. Even the calm and indifferent legendary three-eyed eagle could not hide its excitement when talking about this. It had been trapped in the heavenly square cauldron for 1,000 years. It had thought that it would be tortured and destroyed by the karmic fire, but it had not expected that it would be reborn one day. Logically speaking, it was impossible for the purple gold Bodhi leaf to appear in a place like the Tianling dynasty. However, it had appeared. If this was not fate, then what was it? Chu Lua was also very happy that the legendary three-eyed eagle was one step closer to restoring its body. However, she also had a question in her heart. How did this purple gold Bodhi leaf appear in this guqin? She had not told the legendary three-eyed eagle her true identity. Therefore, it did not know that this guqin was originally hers. She had played this guqin for more than 10 years, but she did not know that there was a purple gold Bodhi leaf hidden in it. Could it be that it was hidden so well that even she did not notice it? After all, if not for the legendary three-eyed eagle's reminder, she would not have known about it. This purple gold Bodhi leaf should have been in this guqin for several years. As for who put it there, I don't know. Chu Lua was a little surprised. You're saying that someone deliberately put it in there? Of course. There are only 2 purple gold Bodhi trees in the world. One is in my clan, and the other is in the Far East. And that place is more than 10,000 miles away from here. It is impossible for such a small purple gold Bodhi leaf to arrive here alone. Therefore, someone must have deliberately brought it here. Chu Lua frowned slightly. A few years. Why did she not know that there was an extra purple gold Bodhi leaf in here? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.